Alright, I just had that gulp that confirms that you're sick. I'm behind on Quest for Completion 14, and I probably ate some stale food that I'm going to regret eating later on. So here's a video on how to go from the beginning of the video game to the end of the video game in 3 to 6 hours, plus an additional 3 hours for the actual farming of the map. Now, I should clarify, what is the end of the video game? It is going to be unlocking an armor farm that is on par with, or I think like 4% worse than the best armor farms in the game. Why is that the end of the video game? Because at that point, without any accessories, you should be able to reach around 5 or 6k in your primary stat. I think 5k more accurately. In your primary stat, and at that point, when you have that much, that high stats, you can go follow whatever YouTube guide you want or, get accessories so you can get even higher stats. But reaching that point isn't actually that hard. You just need to know the route. Mind you, the stat number that I gave there, that's assuming that you don't have any accessories. Just 500 from your weapon and your pet, couple hundred from your levels, and then you have 4 ultimate armor pieces that are all of the same matching set. You and my friend need to be stopped in the beam because you are not taking enough damage. Now, here's the route. Let me do it from memory. Let me see if I can do it from memory. Deeper Well to get to level 14 and also some tower stat items, specifically tower damage. Then we go on to Pirate Invasion, get a DPS weapon. Then we do Dread Dungeon Wave 1, maybe 2 on Insane Hardcore to get even more levels and to get a basic set of godly gear, all the good business. Once we're done with that, we move on to Tinker's Lab, Wave 1, Nightmare Hardcore. Then we do, what was the next part? Embermount, to level all of our characters to 74. And then after Embermount, I think it's Halloween Spooktacular, Moonbase, get a Madness Boulder Thrower, and that's it. But assuming the best luck, you should be able to get to the endgame-ish armor farm within 3 hours. And then completing the entire armor farm, assuming you have around 2 to 2.5k in your primary stat, it takes, I think, 3 hours, something like that. Maybe a bit shorter if you were really efficient, but around 3 hours for the whole thing. So, yeah, not that long, but that's the whole route. At some point, we're going to level even more in Embermount to get our characters up to 78, but that's not super necessary. Now, right now, like I said earlier, we are on Deeper Well. The goal here is to get to level 14. To ensure that we can actually do that, we need to make sure that neither us nor our crystal gets hit the entire time. And then also we need to bring in extra characters on the final wave. And also you are not allowed to kill any enemies yourself. You have to have your towers kill them. A lot of weird sounding requirements, but that's what you have to do to get to level 14 on your very first go around. In case you can't do that for whatever reason, don't worry. For any part of this video guide thing, if you can't follow the current step, just redo the previous step until you can, because you'll be able to. There's nothing really hard that I'm doing here. It's just very basic things that have been routed out in a way that is as efficient as I could bother making it. Which is to say that I have spent the past 11 days, give or take, plotting out this route and seeing what's the most efficient thing to do. That doesn't mean that I know what is the most efficient thing to do. It just means that I know people are going to be mad at me if I don't release Quest for Completion 14. So I need to get this done at some point. So I'm doing it now. Quick disclaimer, by the way, in case you're a new player, don't follow this video. Well, not because it's hard, but don't follow it because I don't want to ruin your gameplay experience. Dungeon Defenders is a game that's like 2 halves of a coin. Think like Two-Face, you know? The first half is early game Dungeon Defenders. You're doing all of the original campaign missions, Deeper Well to Glitterhelm, maybe even the Lost Quest, not the Lost Quest, the Lost Eternia Shards, and maybe some of the challenges that go with all that stuff, right? You're doing all that on difficulties between easy up to like insane, I would say. When you're doing that, you don't really have to worry about following an exact build meta or whatever. You can kind of just freestyle your builds and everything will just work out fine. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about accidentally deleting a really good piece of gear or ruining it because you upgraded incorrectly, because you're not going to get a really good piece of gear. But that's the first half of Dungeon Defenders. The second half, which is what I'm mostly doing here and what you want to get to do when you're watching this video, is going to be basically any map on Nightmare Hardcore or Ruthless especially. And also a lot of the new challenges, lost map quests. There's a lot of the new content is very hard, but basically anything on Nightmare and Ruthless or above, it's very different type of gameplay. That's not to say that it's worse gameplay. It's just a different type of fun. That's the best way I can describe it. Oh, I need to make sure I don't get hit. Oh, run. But here's the thing. If you already know how to do everything, like, super correctly, then you're not going to be able to experience the absolute joy that is freestyle Dungeon Defenders, where you don't know that much and you're just digging around and just figuring out whatever works based off of if it works or not, and you don't have to worry. It's a very different type of joy, and it's something that you can't have if you already know how to do everything, basically. So I don't want to rob that from people who are watching this, maybe playing the game for the first time. So you've had your warning. If that's you, go do the campaign. Do what I said earlier. And then once you've done that, and you really need to figure out how to get stats or mana or whatever the hell, that's when you go to this video, / my Quest for Completion series. But if you don't care about that, and or you've already done that, then here we are. So we're here looking for level 14 and also tower stat gear. Specifically, we want tower damage. On Series EV early game, tower damage scales ridiculously well. That's why we want it. We have a specific stat goal that we want to reach before we move on to the next map. Although it's not super necessary, it would be very, very nice to have. We need to have around, I think the number is 50 tower damage by the end of this, or basically by the end of this. And then we can move on to the next map once we get a DPS weapon, which shouldn't be that hard. By the way, if you have low tower HP, make sure you repair these proton beams while you're going through this entire map. But yeah, once we have the 50 tower damage, it'll make the next map a lot easier, but not necessary. The main thing we need to get before we move on to the next map that we're actually doing is going to be a DPS weapon. And we're not going to get that here, we're going to get that elsewhere. Very quickly, I should mention, while tower damage is your most important thing and you want to pick up anything that has tower damage, tower HP is a not so close second. We don't need it yet, but we'll need it later. And then after that, hero speed and cast rate. Also very nice to have, but certainly not necessary. Now, at this point, I'm going to save opening those chests until later, because, I mean, they're not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to bring in 3 characters. If you are a new player and you're wondering, how the hell is he bringing in extra characters? Press F3 on your keyboard. Oh my god, my ears are getting destroyed. And you will bring in for yourself an extra hero. You can choose whichever one you want. Press F4, bring in one other hero. I can bring in another hero with F5. And that's it. I can't bring in any more heroes than that. But this is going to be the 3 sets of heroes that we're adding for this wave. The reason we're doing it is because more enemies means more drops, means more chances at better gear. And also, we need the extra bonuses for having 4 players to just barely push us over the edge to get to level 14 on our very first attempt of Deeper Well. Very quickly, on the extra character thingamabobber. If I press F3, I can control this character. F4, this character. F5, this character. Here's another cool thing. Let's say I wanted to have this character just, like, shoot in a direction, right? Like this. Well, if I want her to continue doing this, I can just press F2 to swap back to my main screen, and she will continue doing whatever action she was doing before. Very, very awesome. There are also a couple of other hotkeys that I'll show you guys later for the built-in emulator for the game, but we will be using this a lot throughout the video, so I thought it was best to show it off, you know, early on. Here's another one of those cool things. Press F7, it leaves on all your extra characters. Very cool. The last thing would be how I hide / show the extra screens, which is just by pressing F8. Now then, let me go ahead, and would you look at that? I am just barely off of the XP requirement for level 14. Not entirely sure why this happened. Probably because I decided to shoot on my Huntress, but it's fine. I think we can buy a bit of XP from the Tavern Keep. And again, at the end of the day, if I need to, I'll just repeat Deeper Well like one of the waves, and we'll call it a day. But for the moment, we're looking for any kind of gear, whether it be weapons or armor, that has tower damage / any of those other stats that I mentioned earlier, and I do not feel like rehashing again. Whoops, I didn't actually mean to go to the next level. Let's go back to our tavern. There's a few things we need to do in the tavern. Thing number one, look at the pets that the man has available. Of these pets, this guy is a melee pet, and the other two, the dragon and the Hoktua, they are ranged pets. You want to have at least 2 ranged pets to make XP easier later on, and also you might want to look at some of this armor because it might be useful. However, the big thing we're here to do is to pick up our pyro, because we're going to want them equipped later, and also equip any gear that we may not have had the stats for previously, because tower stats are awesome. And then also make sure that your inventory isn't a complete mess. Now let's go ahead and get ourselves a DPS weapon. We're going to go onto Pirate Invasion on Ruthless Hardcore. Now you might be saying, what the fuck are you doing on a Ruthless Hardcore map with a level 13 character? Trust me, alright? This map, along with the spooky version of this invasion, is unique. For some godforsaken reason, you can get weapon rewards from the chests, or basically any rewards from the chests, just right off the bat. And the reason that I'm on my adept is because we're looking for something like this. We need a staff that has at least roughly 80 charge speed with its staff thing, and then after that it needs to have either 100 damage, 100 base damage, or 20, 30-ish upgrades. Now earlier I picked up a staff that had like a decent amount of base damage and also a ton of upgrades. That one is probably good enough, but there's one extra requirement that I didn't mention because I forgot to. The upgrade cost on the staff, it needs to be 39. It cannot be any higher. It also cannot be lower, but that's not because, you know, we're being expensive. It's because it can't be lower than that. So yeah, either 100 base damage or more than 20 upgrades. And of course, no matter what, it needs to have 80 charge speed. You might notice, by the way, some of this gear, occasionally, it kind of has some good tower stats. Yes, you can get that, but it's very unlikely, so I don't like relying on it. But within a single completion of this, I don't even want to call it map, but of this farm, I guess, you should be able to get yourself a weapon that meets all those stat goals that I mentioned earlier. Here's why being level 14 is kind of important, by the way. See this? Shining Nomad. This is something that basically meets the requirements that I had earlier, but you need to be level 14 to equip it. So that's why you want to be level 14. Now, unfortunately, I fumbled. I'm not level 14 on my Series EV, but I think we are close enough that I can just do this map again or something, and then we can level up from the Tavern Keeps XP bonus, which is a mechanic that I did not think I would have to use this early, but I may have been incorrect. Either way, Control G, and look at all of this mana we are going to get. 83,000. That is about the median middle area of what you can expect. Usually it's anywhere between, what's the number? 60,000 at its lowest to 100-something thousand at its highest, 100 like 20-ish. So, very quickly, because I'm not XP or not leveled, boom. XP bonus, I wasted like 70,000 mana. We are now level 14. Very cool. One of these weapons doesn't give tower stats, so it will be put in the item box because I don't want it. We don't have 50 beam damage, which is going to kind of suck for the next map, but honestly, that's too bad. I guess I'll just cry about it. Now then, which of these staves are we going to use? First of all, let's check their upgrade costs. 39, 39, 39, and 39. And also 39 here as well. Given that they all have the same upgrade cost, that means that they can all work as our weapons, except this one, which has low charge speed because I didn't pay attention while picking it up. So let's just go ahead and use... and also this one. Let's use either this one or this one. Alright, let's use this one. I know it's not one of the ones that I mentioned, but that's too bad. Sell our other unlocked items. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do a neat trick where we hold left control on the keyboard, and we're going to press mouse 1. And that's going to put all of our mana towards upgrading this thing as much as it can. Now, normally you should be able to max it out, but honestly, this is more than fine, because if you go on to insane difficulty and I hold left click and right click, we are dealing over 2,000 damage a shot, which is just about the threshold that we need to move on to the next map. And before we do that, I need to use the bathroom because that stale food has made its way through me. I won in my battle against the stale food. Now we're on Dread Dungeon doing the first and maybe second wave on Insane Hardcore. Second wave if we can manage it. First wave no matter what. Very quickly. See how there's no enemies spawning in? If I press O, suddenly you can see the enemy counts. Isn't that neat? Yeah, you can just press O to hide that. You can also press Control and Shift to hide / show a minimap on the left side. Very, very cool. Here is going to be the build. Now, because we have god-awful stats, which is to say we don't have 50 beam damage, we're going to be in a bit of a pickle because we're just not going to be able to kill a lot of the enemies as easily as you normally would. But that doesn't change a couple parts of this build, namely up here. It's just 3 proton beams, roughly like what I'm doing, more or less. Something like this should do just fine. And after that, regardless of if you have 50 beam damage or not, you'll encounter issues over here, so just dump down a physical beam. I guess we can call it a day there. Now we need to go ahead and pick up these 2 chests and go all the way back over here to place down, I think we're going to do 3 proton beams and a physical beam, and then 1 more proton beam. So 4 proton beams. It's going to be weird placement. Now, normally I wouldn't do this, but screw it. I don't have the stats. Let's wing it. Go ahead and place down 3 proton beams. Now we're going to go ahead and place down a physical barrier like this. Let's make it 5 to you because God knows it's going to need the HP. And then after that, let's do this. I'm sure this will not go negatively in any possible shape, way, or form. Now, if you had 50 beam damage, you could actually just place down, after these 3 proton beams, you could place one going from here to here, basically like crisscrossing, forming an X shape through this set of beams, and you could just ditch the physical barrier and another proton beam. But I don't have that, so I can't do that. Make sure you're over here for the next start of the wave. And holding left click and right click, we are going to kill all of the mobs. Spear? Yes. So, not too bad. And if you have a better weapon, it'll be even easier. All the chump mobs die very quickly and very easily. Not that much to worry about. If you can, try and get in like 1 or 2 proton beams before the orcs get over here. But I mean, we have 0 cast rate. As long as you deal with the orcs, you'll be fine though. It's just going to be kind of annoying. But that's, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Don't worry if you get hit, as long as you survive, and also if your crystal gets hit. As long as you can get through the wave, that's what matters the most. And I hope that my crystal doesn't get hit, but honestly, if I don't pay attention, there's a pretty good chance that the orcs are going to hit my crystal at some point. That's fine though, it is what it is. It just means we're going to get a bit less experience. Specifically, if you don't get hit, you get a 1.3 times multiplier to your XP at the end of the wave. If your crystal doesn't get hit, you get another 1.3 times multiplier at the end of the wave. And if the only way that you've damaged enemies throughout the entirety of the wave was through hero damage, like pets or you shooting, and not tower damage, then you also get another XP multiplier. But whatever, we got through the first wave perfectly fine. As always, the disabled orc, I mean mentally, not physically, is down here, doing circles under the bridge. That's fine. We take care of him. We sell a couple of these things because I want to try wave 2. And then we go ahead and put all of our points into beam damage, baby. It's always in the beam damage. And of course, because I remembered, and I'm actually surprised I remembered, we have the Pyro who we can use. And now at this point, if you want, you can do what I'm doing, which is attempt wave 2. But if you don't want to attempt wave 2 for whatever reason, you don't need to. It's just a nice bonus on top. No matter what, make sure that you are looking at the loot from the chests. You're looking for 2 godly weapons that have tower damage / tower HP, ideally both, and then also cast rate speed, those 2 as well if you can. And the goal at this point is we're going to keep repeating the first and second wave, or at least the very first wave, a couple of times until we have somewhere in the range of 200 tower damage and 50 tower HP, something like that. If you want to try the second wave, just do the build that I'm doing here, and you should probably be fine. With a little bit of luck, you should be fine. Although I will admit, it isn't super consistent, especially if you're not that good at the game, so be prepared to struggle a bit. Good God, not having cast rate sucks balls. Ideally, we're going to get items that are level 34 or below in their requirement, but honestly, for whatever reason, you end up just getting a ton of godly gear. You can't really do anything about it, but we need a full godly set of armor and 2 godly weapons later on, so I guess it really isn't that bad if you consider all the factors involved. Go ahead and place a physical beam up here, and then place down a 2 or 3DU proton beam down here. I did 3DU because I'm lazy. By the way, you might be wondering, why are those proton beams being placed above the ground and, like, kind of in weird spots? It's because if they're placed on the ground, the ogre, who will spawn from some random spot, kind of RNG on that, will see the physical barrier on the ground and say, no, I don't want this to be here anymore. And then he will make it so that your physical barrier isn't there anymore. Me personally, I like it when the physical barrier is there. So, you know, we gotta deal with that problem before it becomes too large of a problem. We're going to go ahead over here and place down another 5DU proton beam here, because I know for a fact this area is going to be a massive problem. Go ahead here and place down a 4DU physical beam, because we do not have that much DU to play around with. And then the last thing here is going to be a 2DU proton beam here, and then another 2DU proton beam behind it, something like this. I guess 3DU because we have the DU to spare. There we go. Now I should repair / upgrade some of these things, but I'm lazy. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and look through some of the gear on the ground and pray that we get... I mean, I was hoping for level 34 gear, but screw it, I'll accept level 45. When the wave starts, holding left click and right click, deal with the wyverns that spawn from this direction, because they are god-awful. These guys will ignore your barrier and go straight for your crystal. The guys over here, not quite the same. They'll get stuck on your barrier and either take it down because they just deal damage, or alternatively, there's a good chance that they will just get killed by the proton beams. But either way, best not to risk it, in my opinion. The ogre spawned in this southern area, which is big chilling. Just make sure you dodge his spitballs, and as long as you are consistently damaging him, and or, honestly, your proton beams are doing the same thing, he'll just stay there and die like a moron. So, you know, keep an eye out on your map for any enemies going to your crystal, but mostly dodge his spitballs, and you should be a-okay. As long as you are consistently damaging the ogre, he won't have any reason to go damage the wall that's in front of him. You might be wondering, why doesn't he have reason? It's because the ogre is, in fact, incredibly stupid, much like myself. And wow, would you look at that, he grew a brain, and he is now attacking the wall. This is actually a pretty rare occurrence. Normally it doesn't happen. But if it does, stay calm and do the following. Go up close to him to grab his attention. Bait out a swing like that. God, what a player. And then just drag him around town. Ow, I got hit. That's awful. I lost my XP multiplier. And if you ever lose his attention, just yet again go next to him, get his attention, and dodge a swing. And, oh, get away from me, you jackass. I'm going to go ahead and place down a physical barrier back up here. Just like so. And now we are yet again going to just sit on the crystal as he tries to figure out that the reason he can't get forward is because of the wall that he can destroy. Now you might notice everything else is dead. Yep. We also have a lot of gear to look through. The second wave gives you a lot of mana, and it's really nice for that. But to be honest, it's mainly just done for the experience. If you've done everything right, you should be level 34 right now, and you can equip a lot of that level 34 gear. I, however, am yet again curse of being very close, but not quite there. But it's fine. We can go ahead and equip a lot of new types of gear, or new level requirements on gear, so it's not that bad. We are not going to attempt the third wave. Not because it's impossible, but because, good God, I do not want to attempt the third wave. It will be miserable, and it probably won't be worth the effort. Why will it be miserable, you might be asking? There are 2 ogres, and also there are dark elf warriors. Dark elf, that felt racist. I pronounced that in a very strange way. There are many reasons that you don't want to try it, but mainly it hard and difficult, so why bother? By the way, we're going to be upgrading a couple of our things. Specifically right now, we're going to put a couple of upgrades into our pet. Here is the reason why. It's free. It's literally free to upgrade our pet. Our big boy right here, you might notice, he can be upgraded. That's because, basically, all of the experience that you get on a character that has a pet out turns into mana for the pet, like 1-to-1. I'm pretty sure it's something like that. So you get like, I don't know, 8-ish free levels on your pyro, or maybe 9. So that's pretty nice, meaning you can get like another 9 or so into your tower damage. Alright, now let me make sure that we have everything we need. 2 godly helmets. I'll choose this one because it looks better. A lot of godly chest pieces, but I think this is the best one. Oh, this is legendary. It's not even godly. That's funny. I guess we can lock that. Epic is also level 34. I'll just keep everything that's not godly. Godly gloves and a whole bunch of godly boots. And I think this is the best godly boots we have, or maybe this one. Sure, whatever. But we have no weapons apparently because I forgot to pick them up. That's fine. Control G, and look at how much mana we're about to get here. Oh my goodness, nearly 1,000,000 mana. That's actually on the lower end. You should get a little bit over 1,000,000 most of the time, but that's fine. I got hit, so I have to do this. Get an XP bonus. Not proud of it, but whatever. We get through it. We're level 34, which means we can now equip a bunch of this gear. For example, these gloves, which are a little bit better than my current gloves, and these boots, which are way better than my current boots. Oh my god, that is nice. Now then, we are still not at that stat threshold that I mentioned earlier, so what I'm going to do is first upgrade my pet, because I forgot to do that earlier. And we're going to repeat the first wave, except this time, because we have so much tower damage, I can show you guys the build that you should actually use, assuming that you have 50 tower damage when you're going into this for the very first time. Over here, nothing changes. You're not placing squat over there because you're DPSing down the towers, or not the towers, the mobs. Over here, also nothing changes because it just doesn't really need to. Now down here, this is where the beam cross-section intersection thing changes quite a little bit. Assuming you have 50 tower damage on the first wave, no enemies should be able to get through this set of proton beams as long as you place them fairly accurately. They'll get close, specifically the orcs might get a little bit close, but they won't get through. So just place it roughly in the same way that I am, and assuming all goes well, the orcs will all die before they get through, and you will be very happy. And that's pretty much the build that you would use if you had proper tower stats. Which again, I was like 9 tower damage off of having. Anyways, like I mentioned earlier, the stat goal is 200 tower damage and 50 tower HP. So at this point, you can kind of consider tower HP to be 1/5 as important as tower damage. I'm going to go ahead and try the second wave because I still don't really have the stat threshold. We are still very far off in our beam health. So it's going to be pretty much the exact same build as we did before. Oh yeah, make sure you pick up yourself a couple of level 45 weapons, or level, below level 60 weapons that have tower stats, because the next map we're using, this thing right here, the DPS weapon, nah, you got none of that. You can't do squat for damage with your hero on the next map, at least not yet. Hey, here's a question. So like gender fluid is like you don't like either gender, or you swap between them with what you identify as, right? Or something like that. I'm not gender fluid, I don't know. What is gender solid? If you're gender solid, I guess that means that you're just, you are comfortable with your gender that you got, right? So then here's an important question. What if you're gender gas? What does that entail? Right? That's my question. And then here's another question for you. Here's a real brain twister. What is a gender plasma? What are the requirements to become gender plasma and or gender gas? And what does it entail? Is there like some, super weird state of matter where if you have like negative temperature for gender that you work funky time with magnets? What are the requirements? We need to have more research into this topic. In what world is this glove piece better than my current gloves? Negative 22 tower damage, and also negative 11 hero damage. What's the point? What is the point? The thumbs down and up system in Dungeon Defenders is like moronic stupidity. I don't understand any of the logic behind it, but sure, I guess. Why not? They should really let us edit the files behind that so we can make it, do what we want. We have way more than enough damage, and we basically have enough HP, which means we can move on to the next map. We're also going to buy the pets that were being sold by the tavern keep. And on top of that, we are going to pick up the heavy pet. So these pets are useful for that thing I said earlier, where if you deal only hero damage and not any tower damage, pets also count as hero damage, you get a 1.3 times multiplier on your XP. And the reason we want the ranged pets and not the melee pets is because the ranged pets, well, they're ranged. So, Alright, what are we looking at? Let's put a couple more upgrades into our damage, because why not? I have super low cast rate. Is there anything I can do about this? Not really. Now, we don't have quite enough HP for me to be comfortable, so I'm going to go ahead and on each of our pieces of gear, put like 2 or 3 points into the HP. Except for this one, which doesn't have HP, so I guess nothing on that one. But on everything else, 2 or 3 points. And now that's enough that I'm happy, and I want to focus on the cast rate because while this isn't necessary to have, it is really, really nice to have. So I prefer that we have it. And don't worry about upgrading this gear Funky Style USA. We're going to be replacing it soon enough anyways, so it won't really matter. Now then, let's move on to the next map. By the way, I can't buy this yet, but we'll be able to buy it in a second. We're going to go ahead and do Nightmare Hardcore of Tinker's Laboratory. Yay! God, what a map. Tinker's Lab, truly one of the maps of all time. Very good way to get into level 74 and get some good mythical gear to start out on your heroes. Now, place down your towers roughly as I do. If it needs to be a super precise placement, I'll mention it, but otherwise, just kind of use like the floor and the guardrails as guides, yes. The guardrails especially, like these things, these are really nice to figure out where to place your towers, because I remember when I was learning this, these things helped out so much with knowing where to place the towers in some of the areas. Although, frankly speaking, a lot of the areas are like this, where it's just like, duh, you know? You don't really have to think about it very much. And there's also like these little floor nipples next to the treadmills. Those are also pretty nice in a couple of spots. By the way, I like this spawn specifically because you spawn camp the enemies. You don't let them play the video game. You might be wondering, hey, why don't the archers just like shoot your wall from their spawn? I don't know, man. They just don't. So I'm pretty happy about it. I'm not really going to complain. We're going to go ahead over here. Precise placement necessary. The physical beam? No, but the proton beams. In this bottom right corner, something like this, all the way up to the top middle tile. This isn't super necessary with one character, but later on we're going to do this with 4 characters, and there, the placement being accurate is going to be fairly necessary. Make it a cross, something like I did here, a fairly tight one, and that area will be fine. This next crystal, precise placement required yet again, because this crystal is always a problem. By the way, if you want to rebind the hotkeys for the towers, hover over the button of whatever you want to rebind, and then just press 3 or whatever number on your keyboard, and it'll rebind that over whatever you currently have. On this crystal, we're going to place down a reflector on the left side, because archers are dickheads. And then a 5DU physical beam there, very simple. We're going to place down a 4 or 5DU proton beam starting on that nipple, going to the other side of that the conveyor belt, yep. And then place down another proton beam to the left, forming a wall. Over here, we're going to place down a 5DU physical barrier, and then from this bottom left corner, kind of at this rough angle-ish, a proton beam, starting from this bottom right all the way going up to the top left, a 4DU parallel to that one, roughly a tile away, do the exact same thing. And then all the way down here from the top, a 5DU-ish proton beam. And that should be fine. The super precise placement isn't necessary there, but roughly what I did, and you'll be a-okay. By the way, you might notice we're kind of running a little low on time. You might be wondering, hey, can I do this with 0 hero speed and 0 cast rate? First of all, what is wrong with you? Second of all, yes, you can. I have tried it. It is not easy. Well, it is... I guess it is easy because you can do it consistently, but like you have to be really, on point with your tower placement and whatnot. But you can manage it. I've done it before. You basically get it done right before the enemy starts spawning, and it's a little nerve-wracking. So I would highly recommend getting some points into your hero speed and or cast rate if you can. I need to stop saying that word because if I say it too much, it's going to sound weird. Anyways, this area is fairly simple. Just, beam in the bottom left all the way to the top right into the stairs, and then a beam going straight up, and then another one parallel to it going straight up. Now we're going to move on to this bottom left area down here, and we want to get ourselves a little bit of mana as soon as we can, because this area, when you have the low stats that we do right now, is pretty much always a bitch, has some form of a problem going on, so we need to make sure that we get the mana from, something. Ideally, this guy. There we go. And we're going to place down, as far back sitting here as we can, a 2DU proton beam, something like that. And there we go. We should be totally fine now. Life could, in fact, be a dream. And it is a dream. Let me mention problem areas because there are problem areas on this map. Over here, if you place the physical beam as far back as I did, sometimes goblins, archers, orcs, they'll get stuck around the side of this railing and it's kind of annoying. But if you get the proton beam down fast, that really shouldn't happen. Over here, this is actually a pretty rare one. If you fumble the placement of your stuff or the orc just takes weird pathing, he might not be perfectly in the beam, so just move him over a little bit. You know, upgrade the physical beam in case it gets low. And also over here, back over here, I have never once witnessed any problems, so that should never have any issues. At this top crystal, there will pretty much always be issues, at least once or twice. But otherwise, as long as you place your beams correctly, at least for this, you know, first go around with a single player, there shouldn't be any issues. By the way, look at how much of experience we're getting. Look at that bottom right score. Phew! You know, we're getting big XP, and you'll get even more than that on your other characters. So for now, go ahead and put all of your points into hero damage, and if you have a full set of armor like we do, go ahead and drop every single piece of armor that you have, and also both your weapons, because you're about to swap all of them out for even better stuff. Look at that, we got a full set of godly gear, and that is pretty nice. Now, we're going to pick up every single piece of armor that we get. When it comes to the weapons, we need to get a bunch of weapons that have tower stats, all 4 tower stats. Specifically, we need to get 3 of them. Now, one of those 3 has to be a huntress weapon, because we need to get a tower stat weapon for our huntress, but the other ones, they can be whatever. Huntress weapon or mage weapon, it won't really matter. By the way, don't be dumb. Don't go ahead and equip your armor in the middle of the wave. Equip your armor, you know, after you've picked up these items. But I'm being stupid. Don't do what I did here. You might be wondering, hey, we're gonna attempt the second wave? No. Loud red buzzer, potentially the loudest red buzzer possible. Our asses cannot handle the second wave of this map. It is a massive margin. Think about it like, let's assume that you're like the average, you know, infant child. That's you, right? And the second wave of this map, that is like Mike Tyson. And that's who you're competing with in a boxing contest. That's the best comparison I can come up with my horrible brain. Wow, even with me equipping all that stuff, we had more than enough time to go open all of these chests and pick up all that gear. Go ahead and press Control G. Look at all that mana. My goodness. Alright, I'm going to make a folder called Keep. And temporarily in the Keep folder, I'm going to put... Whoops. I guess swap out works fine as well. I'm going to put all of our weapons that we got there that we want to keep and all of our armor. And then after that, I'm going to unlock all and sell all. Oh, hold on. I can do type and quality. There we go. Alright, I think that's everything. Unlock all, sell all. Very, very cool. Also, we're going to buy this pet. And speaking of our pets, we're going to do a couple of things here real quick. Heavy, congratulations. You're getting a bunch of upgrades. Not too many, because good God, I don't have that much money. I would do the same for these other pets, but I need more mana. So we're going to have to wait a little bit. In the meantime, let's look through these weapons and decide which ones to keep. For the Huntress weapons, we just need one of them that has really good stats, and then the other 2 can go. These are all kind of mediocre, to be honest, but this seems to be the best one out of the 3. And then for the staves, we actually got some pretty good staves overall, so I guess I'll keep this one, and I guess I'll keep this one. And the rest of them can be sold. Let's see how much we can upgrade these pets with the leftover mana. If you get the Hawk 2, it's actually like one of the better pets. Just upgrade the base damage until the range damage is maxed out, and then put all the rest of the points into the base damage. Very cool. I don't know why this dragon cost me 8 million mana, but I'm going to have to deal with it. It doesn't even have extra projectiles, so I'm really confused as to why it cost this much, but it's fine. We're going to be using these pets in just a little bit. And now, for the meantime, let's go in and do the exact same thing again with a slightly different build and also way higher stats. Like, oh wow, way higher stats in most of the ways. We actually have less tower HP than we did before. I should have fixed that. I didn't. I'm lazy. Now that we have higher stats, we can actually place down our physical beam all the way down here because, well, this just reduces the chances that enemies, like, jump across the railing and get stuck. And also, we have enough tower damage that we should be able to kill every single mob before they have a chance to get stuck. So, you know, redundancy, 2-in-1 thing, we should be a-okay by doing that. Now then, quick little thing. You can go ahead and press left alt and swap the position of your heroes. So holding left alt, clicking on her, boom. Click on her, boom. The reason we're doing this is so that I can press F6 and bring in those 3 heroes, because right now our goal is to get all 3 of those heroes to be level 74. Because once these 3 heroes are level 74, we will unlock an XP farm that is literally like 3 times better than this in basically every way. And also, it is a really nice way to get armor. Now, for your first character, whichever one you want to get an XP bonus on every single time, just beat the shit out of that goblin and just run away. Now she is guaranteed to get the 1.3 times XP multiplier for having done exclusively hero damage. As for the rest of your characters, it's kind of an RNG game on whether it'll happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it definitely doesn't hurt to try and damage a couple of mobs to see if you can get the jackpot and it can work out. If you kill an enemy, it actually guarantees the XP multiplier, but it's kind of hard to do that when you deal 0 damage. But very quickly, look at this guy. Half the time when he's over here, he'll just run up to the wall and die like a moron. Same is true if he goes to this downwards area. The other half the time, the other half the time, he's just going to be a complete dickwad and destroy your physical beam. And you might think, oh no, he's going to hit the crystal if he does that. Nope. If he destroys his physical beam, what'll happen is he and his skeletons will just aggro to the other physical beam, and then he'll die to the proton barriers. Also, this guy, he's aggroed on me or something. Oh, well, no, he's just hitting the gritty. I don't know why he's stuck here like this. This is actually the first time I've seen that happen. But either way, we are done with the wave, and we are going to get a boatload of experience on at least one of our heroes. Oh my god, we got lucky and we got experience on all of our heroes. That is very cool. Now then, go ahead and put a couple of our points into damage because we leveled up on our main hero, and these other heroes are now level 70. Or I think they're level 70, right? We're going to put our points into hero speed and damage, and we're also going to give them a pet. Doesn't matter which of the pets, just give them a pet. On our Countess, we don't have a tower stat weapon, so we're going to run around on her until we get a tower stat weapon. There we go. Okay, cool. Now that we have a tower weapon for our Countess, we can move on to our next hero, which is going to be not our Huntress, although I will go on her very quickly and equip a pet on her, but our Aura Monk / Initiate. I'm going to call her our Aura Monk from time to time, but our Initiate is basically the person who builds all of our auras. Go ahead and give her the pet as well. And on her, we're not looking for one tower stat weapon that has all 4 tower stats. We're looking for 3 of them, because we need one for her, we need one for our Hermit, and we also need one for our Warden. And also, if you get lucky, you might get a cardboard tube weapon from one of these chests. If you get that, is really nice, and it can be a way to basically guarantee that at least 2 out of 3 of your characters will be getting the XP multiplier every time. But it is by no means guaranteed as a drop from these chests, so I'm not going to really rely on it. Okay, we have all 3 tower stat weapons. Control G. And now what we're going to do is basically just repeat the same thing until all 4 of those characters are level 74. And the only difference from now on is going to be a little bit of a difference when it comes to the beginning of the round, because we have pets and they can deal automatic damage. And also, we're going to be on our summoner when we're opening the chests on after doing the first wave, because, well, we don't need any more weapons, and the summoner can't use any weapons. So because of that, when you're opening chests on the summoner, you just get armor, and we need armor. We need a lot of armor. Or we don't need a lot of armor. We just need to roll a lot of armor so that we get good armor on all of our heroes. Now then, because we have pets, this is mostly the same process, except our pets are going to... They're not going to guarantee our damage, but they're going to make our damage a lot easier to get. So I'm going to go ahead and move her over here and move her over here. We're not going to go in just yet until that spider is dead, but once that spider is dead, we're going to go in the deep end and try to get some good damage on our heroes. Oh my god, move out of the way. This bridge is, by the way, this bridge is awful. I don't know what the problem is with this bridge, but it is terrible. Hey, speaking of problems, This guy down here. I guess I just fumbled my placement of my tower or something, but he's going to be able to take down that wall. So to prepare for it, I'm going to go run and all the way over there and either upgrade the wall or repair it because I don't have enough mana to upgrade. And then I'm going to place down a proton beam right on top of him. The mage over here is being a jackass, as always. But again, I'm pretty sure it's going to lock the minions on top of... Oh. I was going to say, it's going to lock the skeletons on top of the wall and not the crystal, but instead it just died. Oh my goodness. I was surprised by this. It's pretty unlikely that all three of your characters get the 1.3 times XP multiplier, but the fact that they are, I'm not too upset about it. By the way, earlier in the video, when I brought in my summoner, this is one of the reasons. I mean, not necessarily like a main reason, but this is one of the reasons. Because the difference between having 0 speed and having 10 speed, good God, it is very noticeable. I have in the past gone around on this map with a 0 speed summoner opening all of these chests, and it just takes forever. Holy hell, it's awful. We're currently right now at the 1 hour mark, just about the 1 hour mark since I started recording and or started playing on the account. So if you wanted to have like a reference point for our progress and all that good business on the edited version of the video, here is where we are. We are like 2 more runs of this map off of being finished with the Stinkers forever. Ingenious move by the developers to have the button to leave on all of your extra characters be right next to the button to hide the extra screens on all of your characters. Not sure I would have made that same decision, but you know, I'm not the game developer, am I? Is there a way to remap the hotkeys? They really need to update the tutorial for this game. I should not have to explain how to use splits in this game when it is like such an, not essential, but more or less quality of life-wise essential part of the game. I should not have to explain how to use splits. That should be like in the tutorial or something. But here we are. Same with like Control M and a whole lot of other things, like how to move your heroes around in your character selection screen. This is all things that should be known by every single person playing the game. But there are still people, myself included by the way, I'm still learning about cool shortcuts like Control, Shift, and all that business. There's still a lot of people who don't know that you can continue shooting with a split, that don't know that you can hide split screens or all this business. They don't know a lot of things. There's also other stuff like, you know, tower stacking, which at some point the developers have to address tower stacking. I know right now they're getting away with just like not dealing with it because it's weird. It just feels like it doesn't fit. But let's be real. Chromatic Games individuals, the community dev team, you guys be honest. You're not getting rid of tower stacking. It's not going to happen. You have to find some way to implement it in the game. In my opinion, just say fuck it. Let us tower stack, alright? I don't think people will be very confused as to why you can't stack auras or traps, but you can stack other things, because at the end of the day, it tells you you can't place 2 auras of a similar type. And also, it tells you you can't place 2 traps of a similar type. And then the default message for not being able to place 2 towers on top of each other, obstructed. That works. You can just keep that. Remove the thing that you can't stack the towers, and just keep the thing where it's obstructed. I know it'll look kind of funky and potentially ugly to some people, but honestly, I think it's worth it. And it would be cool to not have to use a third-party tower stacking hotkey script to do something that well, not every, but a lot of players do, you know? It would be cool to have it built in like the emulator. And I know, again, it's weird, it doesn't feel right, and the emulator did feel right, and they did it really well, but come on, guys. This is stupid. Also, I know you can do it consistently without having a tower stacking, you know, auto hotkey script thing bobber. But let's be real. Unless you're just very dedicated, you're not doing that. It's like it's pretty hard to do. Especially, I think it's FPS dependent partially. So for somebody like me who's running around on 120 FPS constantly, first of all, get flexed on. Second of all, I'm screwed. You know, I'm in even more of a pickle. 18.3 million XP to get to level 74, and we have more than that on every single one of our heroes. Very nice. I'm just going to go ahead and pick up all this armor, and I'll show you guys in a moment how to sort through your armor. It won't be like a super in-depth guide on armor and inventory storage, sorting, and all that, because that's kind of hard to go over. But it'll be a rough guide, and it'll be good enough to explain how to do it for the moment. First things first, let me respec all of my heroes, because these guys are not going to be damage-dealing characters, they're going to be builders. So Countess cares the most about her damage. Aura Monk cares the most about her aura radius. We're also going to go ahead and put the pets in the item stash, because these characters no longer need them. And the Huntress, the Trap Tress, she cares the most about her trap radius, which is also range. Now, when it comes to the items that we have, I'm going to make a folder called Tower. And this is going to be for basically any gear that is similar to this. Has quad tower stats. Now, obviously, all of the weapons that we have go in there because, you know, that's the main reason that we kept them. We're also going to keep any quad tower stat armor in there as well. And that is every single piece of tower gear that was worth keeping. Now let's move on to the DPS gear, which is the other category. And this one is a little bit more complicated, so let me explain what we want in terms of our DPS gear. And that's basically the DPS gears that we have. We have one character, which is going to be our primary DPS monk. He basically wants HP, damage, ability 1, and ability 2. But primarily this guy cares the most about damage, ability 2, and HP. And ability 1, if you can get it, is a nice bonus. That's going to be our first DPS character. Next up is going to be our Tower Boost Monk, which is another DPS character. He cares the most about his Tower Boost, which is ability 1. He cares a lot about ability 1. After that, it's hero health, because he needs to stay alive, and then like maybe a little bit of hero damage, but that's mostly it. And as a very niche thing, maybe ability 2, but mainly HP and ability 1. Next is going to be our Upgrader Adept. We're not going to be using this character as a builder, even though you could. We're just not going to be using her for that. Instead, we're going to use her for her upgrade aura, and the only thing she cares about, and I really do mean the only thing, is her upgrade aura, ability 1. We don't really worry about the health or the damage because I'm being lazy, but later on, you know, you probably want to. We have our Jester. She cares the most about her ability 2 by a pretty massive margin, and then after that, it's going to be HP and then damage, and then that's it. Also, we're going to want negative range, or at least 0 range and or negative range on her later, so that's going to be weird as well. And then last is going to be our Lenny, our summoner. He cares the most, and by the most I mean exclusively, about his hero health. Everything else here does not matter. His only purpose is to just sit there with 2 guardian pets, and that's it. Now then, you know what kind of stats that we're looking for, so you can tell, just, you know, off an eyeball that something like this is going to be a very good piece of gear for any of those heroes, because look, it's got HP, damage, ability 1, ability 2, but here's the most important part, the damage resistances. I'm going to be calling these reductions from now on, because I can't say resistances in the normal speech pattern, otherwise I will sound like XQC. So, here's a rundown. When you're looking at any of these pieces of gear, the number one most important thing to look at is the damage reductions. This is very, very important, along with the upgrades. These cap out at what, like 23, 24 in each of them. I need to make sure that with all of the negatives and the amount of upgrades, you will be able to, no matter what, cap out all of these reductions to their soft cap. I'll explain what I mean by soft cap later, but just for now, basically make sure that you can upgrade these and all of these numbers will be maxed out before you run out of levels. And then after that, all of the characters are going to want HP, so you want HP, and then from that point, it kind of depends. This one right here, as an example, has HP, damage, and ability 1. I don't think ability 1 and damage matter that much together, but it has HP and ability 1, therefore, this is going to be something that is useful as a ability 1 piece and or a tower boosting piece for one of our characters. This thing is the same thing, more or less. It has ability 2 in there as well, but this is just, you know, mostly ability 1 thing, probably like for our upgrader adept or something. This is ability 2, might be useful on a DPS monk or something, but wait, look at the reductions, look at the upgrades. This one might just barely scrape by, but honestly, I doubt it's going to have enough upgrades to cap out its reductions, so I'm not going to bother. This one here has fairly low stats in a lot of ways, but it still meets the bar. I'll put it in, because why not? And just basically go around this the entire time. Anyways, we have 72 pieces of DPS gear. Good God. But now we gotta get full sets of armor on our heroes. And here, we can't just equip, like, random armor sets, we have to equip a matching armor set because, let me just show you guys as a rough outline real quick. If you equip a matching set of armor, every single stat on that armor set is multiplied by a certain percentage. For Mythical, as an example, it's 1.3 times. So if I drop this same piece of gear, this chest piece, which shows 59 base damage for the towers, if I don't have a matching set, it's actually only 45. So that's why having a matching set matters, because it increases your stats by like 33% in every single one of them. Or no, 30% for Mythical. The amount that it increases your stats by, the percentage-wise, that increases with the higher the rarity of the item. So like Transcendent is 36, Supreme is 30, or no, Transcendent is 33, Supreme is 36, and then it's like 40 for Ultimate, or something along those lines. I'll put a chart on the screen. Now, you might be wondering, what am I going to do with all of this other armor that just wasn't good enough to keep? I'm going to make a folder called Just In Case, because what if you don't have enough armor sets to equip a full matching set on all of your characters? In that case, having something that's kind of good, but not crazy good, is better than having something that's not a matching set. Also, I wanted an excuse to put these things back in the item box because I never looked at which of these helmets and gloves and chest pieces was best. Now then, here are the stats on all of our characters. Around 800 to 900 in the primary stat, and for most of these characters, between 400 to 500 in all of the secondary stats. So here's our Countess. This one actually has a really good set of gear because, wow. Our EV, she has like 1,000 and a bit higher in everything else, but that's just because, one, she has a pet, and two, she has several weapons. So that's why she's always going to have higher stats. And last is our Huntress, who, sure, she has 900 tower range, but these two stats are really low because, frankly speaking, I got pretty unlucky, and I don't have a matching set of, or a full matching set of plate armor, chain armor, or mail armor. And I'm too lazy to go ahead and like look through the just in case folder. So I just went ahead and equipped whatever we had, and it's fine. It'll be fine. Now let's go ahead and move on to Embermount Volcano Nightmare Hardcore Wave 1 farming. The build is pretty damn simple. Let me do my hotkeys before I forget to do it later. And it's also really, really good. This whole thing, this entire map is just really nice to do the first wave of, because if I remember correctly, as long as you get all the multipliers and you finish the wave in reasonable time, it's like 9 million experience per character. And on top of that, the armor that you get from these chests, like after finishing the first wave, it is give or take like 1.5 times better than what you would expect on Tinkers. So like, it's really good. But the build is really, really simple. It's just a slow and a strength drain aura at every one of these chokes. Go ahead and pick up this mana chest before you go back up, otherwise you will forget. And by that I mean I will forget, because I always forget. Then we're going to go ahead and swap over to our EV. I'm going to place the buff beam as my one hotkey. We're going to place down a reflector 3DU over here, like so. Another 3D reflector kind of like this. There we go. And then a 1DU forming kind of an A shape. And then in the middle of that, going all the way across, place down a tower buff beam 60U and do the exact same thing on the opposite crystal. Next is our Huntress, and we're going to place down a couple of gas traps, because as you might imagine, 1k stats, I don't think that's enough to deal with the enemies before they can get to your towers or your crystal. So the gas traps are necessary to hold the enemies off. Very simple, place them as close as you can to your crystal so that they don't cause blockages later on, but either way, you'll be fine. Last is going to be our Countess, and let me bind the mortar turret to number 1. Here is where tower stacking comes into play. So normally, if you want to place down a tower, you place down a tower. If you want to place down another tower, you can't summon them directly on top of each other. You have to, like, you know, this is the best that you can get. But if you're very, very fast, you can hover over where you want to place one tower, and then you can press the button, the hotkey, to place down that tower, and then spacebar right afterwards. And if you do it right, you'll be able to stack your towers from any distance. Like this. Nope, couldn't get it. If you can't get it like I can't, then just go ahead and download a auto hotkey application, or just something that can run a basic script. And then I'll put in the description my auto hotkey script. Basically, for mine, if you're going to use mine, just press Control and then the hotkey button, so like 1, and you'll be able to place down the towers on top of each other. except I forgot I actually have to run the script, and I always disable it on accident. But go ahead like this, and then Control 1, and look at that. You can stack the towers on top of each other. I guess it isn't entirely necessary for this. You could get away without using it, but it just kind of saves on brain power, so I like using it. But basically place down a mortar turret facing each of the primary choke points, and then one facing backwards. You might be wondering, why is there one facing backwards? First of all, good question. Second of all, spiders. We got to deal with the spiders somehow, and that is the only way I know to deal with them pretty easily. You have exactly 8 DU left over and 160 mana, so just go ahead and place down a mortar turret, or not mortar turret, harpoon turret facing the left and the right, and that's it. It's a very simple, very easy build, and now we can move on to leveling up all the rest of these characters up to level 74. Now, because our primary screen character is going to get credit for those mortar turret kills and also any reflections on the reflection beams, they're not going to be eligible for the 1.3 times XP multiplier for dealing only tower damage, meaning I'm just going to leave Zendigas there because it's not like he was going to do hero damage anyways, right? Doesn't really matter what order you level up these characters in, you just need to get all of them up to 74 before we move on to the next map. Now when you're starting this wave, even more than before, you're going to have a tough time getting the 1.3 times XP multiplier on all of your characters. Obviously, whichever character you start out with, like my monk in this case, they will always get the XP multiplier, so you don't have to worry about them. But the other two characters, like my warden and my hermit here, I wouldn't bet on it, basically. It's just very unlikely that you're going to actually get the multiplier. I think if you drop down and you deal like melee damage on them a little bit, it increases your odds, but one, you risk getting killed by a spider if you do that, and two, it still just doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the multiplier, the Markiplier. So, but it's fine. We only have to do this once because, well, after we've done this once, we will be level, whatever level required to equip our ranged pets, and then our ranged pets can get multipliers for us, and life can be a dream. Anyways, look at that. Our first wave completed, and we get a ton of experience, and I think we actually got the multiplier on all of our characters. Hell yeah. True nobility as well. Not exactly 9 million experience on the dot, but, I mean, close enough, right? And finally, Zendigas can have 100 hero speed. Now go ahead and pick up the armor from the chests. I'm actually going to look through the armor during the wave because I'm confident in my ability to determine what's worth keeping and what's not. But if you aren't confident in the way that I am, then just pick up everything and you know, keep it. Wow, look at that. So yeah, the armor that you can get on Tinkers at its absolute best is going to be something that's like roughly quad 100-ish in its tower stats. But on Embermount, you can get like quad 150. And also, the DPS gear that you get on Embermount, armor-wise, is way, way better than on Tinkers, at least on average. Now, once you've done this a single time, you can go ahead and bring in your secondary characters and place them roughly around this spot at its farthest. I wouldn't recommend going any farther than that because I have had one time in the past my character got killed by an archer just Lee Harvey Oswalding him. But as long as they're roughly around like this bridge area, their pets will be able to reach down onto the enemies and get you the XP multiplier fairly consistently. But no spiders or archers will be able to reach high enough here in their aggro to kill your heroes. Now before I go ahead and equip the gear on all of these new heroes, I'm going to go ahead and equip the best gear on the current heroes that we have just to make our lives easier, and also it's an excuse to show off how to compare gear. So obviously, whenever you're comparing gear, say for example this helmet to the current helmet that I have equipped, it'll show you the current gear of your current helmet and then the gear of the helmet that you're looking at. But the thing is, those stats that you see on the right side, those are the stats when the gear, or those are the stats when you have a matching set and it's multiplied by 1.3. So what you want to do is just drop one of the pieces of your gear, so like for example your helmet, and then once you've dropped that, you can go ahead and compare, say for example your chest piece, look at that, this one's way better than what I have, and your boots, and also your gloves, although I don't have any gloves to compare, but you know. And then once you're done, just go ahead and drop a new piece of gear that you equipped, whatever it is, and then you can compare that last piece that you had before. By the way, you might notice an old folder here. This is because the old gear that we have is significantly worse than the new gear, and I didn't want to waste my time looking through it. By the way, for your other heroes, your Hermit, There's a lot of different builds you can run on the Hermit, but I like putting all of the points into damage. He cares the most about damage. In the Warden category, it's actually the exact same thing. She cares the most about her damage, so put all of her points there. For this guy, our overall Universal Monk, I'm going to go ahead and put 200 points into the HP, and then the rest of them into the ability 2. For the Tower Boost Monk, we're going to respec and put all of his points into Tower Boost, and we're going to do the exact same thing with our Upgrader Adept. Then on the Jester, we put all the points into Wheel of Fortuna. Yes, Fortunas. And of course, our Summoner, Secondary Summoner, all the points into base health. Now here are the new stats on all of our characters with the new sets of gear, having upgraded some of the previous things that we already had, and also in a couple of instances replaced the gear that we had. Zendigas is completely naked because I don't care about him. I'm going to be honest, I just forgot that I had a Summoner. Like later on, for a lot of stuff you might want to do like late game, you might want to have a Summoner for a builder. In fact, you probably do want to have one. But for the purpose of the video, I'm not going to bother, and I'm lazy. Also, the Adept doesn't have gear because I forgot to give her gear, but we'll do that later. We'll do that whenever we need to, and I'll show you her stats when we need to. But basically, with around 800 to 1,000 in the primary stat for pretty much all of our builders, we can move on to the next map, which is in the Challenges category, actually. Halloween Spooktacular on Ruthless Hardcore. This map, really, really nice. Small caveat, you just have to build a little bit fast on the intro wave because there's just not that much time to build. So go ahead and follow roughly what I'm doing in the building. I'm not going to go over it super in detail because I want to talk about other things, but just follow along with me and you should be a-okay. This build that I'm doing is a build that is meant to be done with 500 in all of your tower stats. Now obviously we have 500 in all of our tower stats except our primary one where it's double that, so it's going to be quite a lot easier. And because of that, we have a few more freedoms in the build that we are going to use to speed up the build timer in general. That's going to be it for the auras. Grab your mana chests on your way out. Next, we're going to swap over to our series EV and place down a couple of very, very basic buff beams. One up here, like so. One all the way back here, kind of near a stack of pumpkins and whatever debris this is. 4 DU, not 5 DU, because I am stingy. And then lastly, one right behind this crystal near this wooden pail thing. I don't even know what that thing is. Now we're going to go ahead and swap over to our Huntress. And we're going to place down a gas trap there, a gas trap on the opposite side of the crystal here, 2 gas traps on this crystal, going as far inland as we can, one there, and then one right there, and then one last gas trap, which is going to be placed right here in front of this crystal, just like that. Now, to be honest, I don't really think those gas traps are super necessary, but I personally like placing them, and I don't really mind. Seed Bomb Tower on 1, Force Golem on 3. We're going to place down Seed Bomb Towers, one facing top left, one facing forward, one facing right, and one facing straight backwards. I'll explain why later, but for now, just trust me on it. We're going to place a Speed Bomb Tower facing that direction, and then basically just 3 straight, towards the crystal over here. And then last, for the Seed Bomb Towers, at least the majority of them, we're going to place 4 of them over here with one facing kind of towards the left, one facing to the middle, one facing to the right a little bit, and then one facing straight back. And that's going to be it for most of the major tower stacks of Seed Bomb Towers. With the leftover mana, we're going to place down a Forest Golem over here because of these spiders who just stay here and take forever to die otherwise. So he's going to deal with those guys. We will have to upgrade him a little bit in the future, but for now he's fine. And we're also going to place down a Seed Bomb Tower over here. You see that like left side of the screen where my arrow is right now? You want to make sure that that area, like in front of the gas trap, is getting lit up by the yellow so that your Seed Bomb Tower is facing that way. And this will deal with the enemies that get stuck down here, namely the spiders, but also, if necessary, the big orcs or whatever. But the first wave of this map is actually like really, really easy, and it's really chill, so you don't have to worry about much. And our build is more or less complete now. All we have to do is just place down a Forest Golem at each one of these crystals, and that's it. This one over here, by the way, this guy does a lot of work. He actually blocks just a shite ton of spider webs. And this guy might as well, but less so. But once you're done building all of those guys, just go ahead and swap over to, like, I don't know, whatever hero. It doesn't really matter because they're not going to be doing much. I'm going to go on the Jester because Jester cool, and also Jester has really fast upgrade speed, so that's also nice. But basically, just max out your buff beams. That's going to be your first thing to do. Once you have your buff beams maxed out, you can focus on other things like your auras or, I don't know, whatever other towers you care about, really. But make sure you max out your buff beams first. Very quickly, though, I'm going to go ahead and give this Forest Golem up here, like, 3 or so upgrades. That way, every single one of his rocks does enough damage to one-shot all the spiders, and we don't have to wait that long for him to kill the spiders at the end of the wave. Oh yeah, this is a good chance to show off why I placed down these, what's we call it, C-bomb towers facing the directions they have. It's because this pumpkin right here, very, very frequently, if not every time, will have at least a couple of wyverns that are just stuck inside of it. A lot of wyverns, actually. So that's why you want to see bomb tower facing all the way left. You want one facing forward for, obvious reasons. And you want one facing right side here, just because it just helps out with the general, like, enemy flow. I don't really know how to describe it, but you want one facing this right side. And then you want one facing backwards towards here, because very frequently you'll have a situation where enemies are stuck on the gas trap or something like that, and they're all stuck right here, and that just deals with them a lot more efficiently than the Rockman does. And the same thing over here, well, sort of the same thing. Having one facing towards the right is pretty nice for getting a bit of early damage on the enemies coming in from the right, but you want one facing back to deal with the wyverns that come in from the back, and also potentially some of the generic mobs that come in from the back. But right now, all of my buff beams are maxed out. This guy is pretty high upgraded, and so is this guy, although I will probably max both of them out. All that's really left to do is give each of the auras, like, I don't know, 3 chevrons or whatever in their upgrades, and that should be good enough to just chill on the map. Oh yeah, by the way, if the spiders down here are poison element, then these seed bomb towers aren't really going to do much damage to them, and they'll just kind of die over time like that one did. Every single enemy in this game has like some form of cancer or something like that, so if they live for about 1:20 or longer, they'll just die, like, immediately. Now for the final wave, we're going to go ahead and go to our monk, the main DPS monk, who, well, he's not really DPSing now, but he exists. We're also going to bring in our aura monk. We're also, on top of that, going to bring in our hermit. And then, of course, as our last character, we're going to bring in our warden. Now, you might notice a commonality between all 3 of these heroes. All of them use monk weapons. That's because the character-specific weapon reward that I want on this map is the monk weapon, and I want to make damn sure that I get one that is a good DPS weapon on our first go-around. You can't, like, guarantee it 100%, because at the end of the day, it is, like, kind of RNG, but having 4 of these guys in means you get 4 of them, and they drop pretty frequently as good ones, so with 4 of them, you should get one on your first go-around. More than likely. More than likely, it'll be something that is ultimate quality or above. And you might be wondering, hey, how can you equip an ultimate quality item? Isn't that like a level 90 requirement, level 93? You are correct. Except this map, the weapon rewards are very unique in that they don't have a level requirement. Well, they do, but it's like level 60 or something. Meaning that even if you get something that's like Ultimate Plus or Ultimate Plus Plus that would normally require 100 levels to equip, you can just equip that immediately. As long as you're level 74, you can just equip it. And the stats that I can roll on these items, both for tower stats and DPS stats, are really good. And on top of that, the monk weapon from here is kind of just like a really good monk weapon. The only caveat that comes with it is it's a little bit dependent on what the base damage rolls as. Actually, not a little bit. It's very dependent on what the base damage rolls as, because there's a very big variance on what the base damage will be. Anyways, that's enough of me yapping. I think there's like, what, this guy down here, and that's it. And there we are. We are done with the map. Very easy, very chill. By the way, we're looking for pets on top of everything else here. We want to get specific types of pets. So in terms of the pets, we're not caring about these or these. We want specifically a genie pet of some kind. Like, any genie is better than no genie, but ideally you want to have positive tower boosts. And then everything else is kind of optional, but The best genie will have HP, damage, tower boost, and ability too. But for sure, we want to get one that has like 400 in its tower boost. But this one will do just fine. The next type of pet we want is a animus, or not animus, sorry, a guardian. Now, specifically, not the apprentice guardian, nor the squire guardian. So in that way, we kind of got lucky. We lost the 1 in 4 coin flip on each of these. We want to get 2 huntress guardians and 2 monk guardians. One very important thing to mention on the guardians is the requirements for a guardian to be good, because no matter what, any guardian that you get needs to have at least 40 in its like blue arrow boost or above. Now you might be wondering, what's the difference between these two, the 38 and the 100? It's very little. Well, sort of, it's very little. It's not really very little, but basically there's no difference between this being 40 and this being like a gajillion, because it caps out at 40. Same with this at 90, but that one doesn't matter nearly as much. And then on top of that, you need to have at least 50 levels on the Guardian for it to be acceptable, because otherwise it won't reach its maximum number of defenses to boost at +6. So because this one doesn't have enough levels, and this one both doesn't have enough levels, and also isn't at least 40 in its blue arrow boost, neither of these as Huntress or Monk Guardians would have worked. So I'm not super upset about that. Now let's look at the weapons. And look at that. Pretty crummy about the tower damage, or tower range. But it's a ultimate, and we can already equip it right now. This one right here is a bit of a better example, where the base damage is a bit higher, but still a bit low. The base damage can range between like 7,000 up to 27,500. So it's fairly important that you get something like this that has a lot of base damage. Although honestly, in this case, it's a bit unfortunate that it rolled below an ultimate, because ultimate weapons get more damage per upgrade than things that are not ultimate. But still, for the moment, it's a fine enough weapon to accept. I don't really mind. And also, depending on how the stats roll, you might get a really good tower stat weapon from here. In fact, we're kind of relying on getting that at some point, whether it be from here or from one of the later on maps. The weapons that you get from here, I mean, like, look at this. The other weapons, the non-specific ones, they can be worth looking at if they're mythical. It's definitely worth just like giving them a little one-over, because they might be, you know, a big upgrade. Same with the armors. Far less likely on the armors to be decent, but it's still, you know, it's still possible the armors are going to be good, just less likely. And if they are good, more often than not, they'll be great. But in this case, we got a genie. I guess we got this griffin pet, which will be decent for DPS, maybe, or like something in the future. Not really worried about these other pets because they don't really matter that much. And not worried about the other Nosferatus because they're not good for tower stats or DPS. So, go ahead and sell all, and you'll notice that you get a ton of mana for selling. It's like anywhere between 300 to 500 million per go, assuming that you have average luck. And on top of that, all the items on the ground, it's roughly 130 mythicals. So when you go back to your tavern, proceed to the next level, it's about 100 to 120 million mana. Going back to your tavern after every one of these attempts is important, because this right here, you see this bad boy? This is either a Monk Guardian or a Monk Animus. And the Tavern Keep, a complete RNG chance, he can sell one of them, whether it be a Monk or a Huntress or whatever. So it's just always worth to go back here and check. But in this case, unfortunately, it was an Animus, so it doesn't work. But it's always worth checking, because if he has one, seriously, it's good. It is very, very worth checking. Although it will be kind of expensive at around like 200 million-ish. Let me show you how to upgrade your Nosferatu. Basically, just put points into range damage until you get to the maximum number of additional projectiles, which is +6. And then after that point, just dump even more points into your additional, into your range damage. I'd recommend like 100 or 120-ish levels. Something like that should do just about fine. And now, even on Ruthless, you are dealing a pretty good amount of damage, even more so when you hero boost. And if you go on to Insane difficulty, you deal 6-ish times the amount of damage, which is pretty damn nice. Here's another thing that's really cool about the Nosferatu. Not only does it have a ton of extra projectiles and, you know, pretty good damage on average, it also has a ton of splash damage. Like, look at this. I can shoot this dummy from all the way over here. All the way over here. And sure, it's not doing that much damage, but that means that when you're shooting into a crowd of, like, ogres or whatever the hell, it's going to hit pretty much every enemy, and that is really, really nice. Also, absolutely necessary, when you're following this guide, make sure to equip the ninja skin for your monk. This skin will add approximately 10 trillion points of swagger to your monk by making him do a backflip every time he jumps and just being the best skin in the game. God, I love this skin. It is so cool. God, it is amazing. Alright, it is currently 5 hours of sleep, and I am 8 a.m. We gotta do Moonbase. I'm doing it on Insane Hardcore, because if you do it on Insane Hardcore, the weapon, and I also think pet rewards can be really, really good. But honestly, is it really worth the difficulty? Probably not, because you're only going here for a fish in a bowl, and you basically just want like a quad 500 tower stat fish in a bowl. And whether you do this on Insane, or you do it on hard difficulty, more than likely you will get a fish in a bowl that is, you know, quad 500. But I'm doing it on Insane because I think I can do it, and also I really want to gamble on getting good weapons. Place down your auras something roughly in the way that I am. There's a reason that this slow aura is placed a little bit farther back than the other things. In fact, it should be placed even farther back. It's the same one that this one is also being placed farther back. Basically, if we look up here, we see an enemy spawn point. Slow aura plus enemy spawn point means invincible enemies invincible enemies, which also means longer waves and also more misery. Now then, we're going to go ahead and swap over to our Series EV. For the very first round, we're going to place a couple of reflectors. By the way, button underneath these stairs over here. Also, button on top of that thing up there. That's why I jumped into the tube and pressed that button. I'll show what the buttons are about later, but for now, just go ahead and dump down a buff beam on the crystal, and then 3 reflectors. Honestly, on this crystal, I don't think these reflectors are doing literally anything, but on this crystal, the reflectors very much are doing many things. Just dump down a buff beam right there. Over here, this crystal pretty much always gets hit, so, you know, to prevent that, we're going to place down a couple of reflectors. You might notice, there's actually not that many enemies. In fact, the only real tough enemy on this round is the one Jin. And yeah, no, there's just not that many enemies on Wave 1 and Moonbase. It's pretty chill. You can kind of get away with a lot. But I'm just going to try and make sure that the crystal doesn't get hit on any of these crystals, really. Doesn't really matter how much DU the reflectors are, because we're going to sell them later. But for now, Dance Dance Revolution, baby. You have to score some kind of a positive score on this machine in order to open this door and go get your fish in a bowl. I do it on the blue difficulty because I find it to be the one that I am most used to. But you can do it on whatever you find easiest and just go for a high score. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, you know, using this machine. But honestly, getting a positive score of any kind isn't particularly hard, especially when you can just get a lot of the same arrow in a row, which will make your life very easy. But as long as you're really good, this is just a really nice way to get a ton of mana on the very first wave. My god, your goat. Your goat, oh, I was going to say your goat is not washed, but then I missed the last one. 190 is the maximum score you can get on that. I think if you get, like, the green difficulty and you do everything perfectly there, take the fish in a bowl so that we get it. If you do the green difficulty there and you get, like, perfect score, if I remember correctly, that means that you get Moonbase Tavern skin if you do this on Ruthless Hardcore or something like that. Now we're going to place a couple of physical beams. A 2DU physical beam right here. I think up here we actually don't need one. So instead we're going to place a 2DU physical beam right here as well. And then kind of a good bit far back here, we're going to place down a 3DU physical beam. Just barely 3DU like so. Then we're going to run all the way over here. Place down a 2DU physical beam fairly ahead. Something like this should do just about fine. Another 2DU physical beam over here. And honestly, that might make the reflections redundant on that crystal, but whatever, it's fine. And then we're going to place one last 2DU physical beam right here. And that's all the physical beams we will need. And at this point, you can either go and like do the rest of your buildings, or alternatively, what I'm going to do, which is just run around on my monk and upgrade the buff beams and whatnot. The enemies here do have a decent amount of HP, like 8,000 for the little dudes is quite a lot, but other than the Jins and the Ogres, nothing really has enough HP to stay alive for very long against you. By the way, we're going to be doing this map like more than likely around 3-ish times, because while the odds of getting a quad 500 fish in a bowl are pretty high, they're not guaranteed, and also it's a very short map, all things considered, so I don't really mind spending a bit of extra time here. Now then, we're going to go over to our Warden. Here are the stats yet again. Actually, pretty crummy stats in the Warden, but it doesn't matter. What we're going to do is sell the majority of our reflections. By the majority, I mean literally all of them. And we're going to tower stack a couple of wisp ends at pretty much every one of these crystals. Up here, I like to dump down 2 right here, like this, and like this. Just 2 right there. And then over at this middle crystal area, usually I just dump down 1, but I've recently cut down the amount of physical beams that I use in my build, so I think I can actually just dump down 2 and call it a day here. And if I'm not mistaken, at this last crystal, I should be able to dump down 2 more wisp ends, and then that's it. So let me make sure. Let's see. 1 wisp end. Oh, we are 1 DU off of placing another one. Oh well, if that's the case, I'm just going to dump down a cloud tower facing straight forward and call it a day. The build isn't exactly spectacular or super well thought out, but I mean, it works. Frankly speaking, until the ogres spawn in, you don't really have to worry about anything, and if you got lucky enough to get a genie pet right now, then, I mean, you can just upgrade all the buff beams to maximum in a single wave, so there's not really much to worry about. Just keep an eye on the genies, make sure they don't take down your towers, because they do have enough health to just survive all of the wisp end shots. But as long as that doesn't happen, or more importantly, honestly, as long as your crystal doesn't get hit, there's not really much to worry about. The waves on Moonbase are incredibly, incredibly fast as long as you have all 3 of your crystals alive, so you really don't have to worry about this taking a very long time. The initial build is by far the most time-intensive part of this entire map. By the way, we start getting ogres now. Most of the time, the ogres, they will spawn like right here or right here. Like later on when we get a ton of ogres spawning in, one of them will spawn here, another one will spawn here, and then one will always spawn over here, pretty much every single time. I don't think it's like guaranteed, but it might as well be. I've never really seen a situation where that isn't what happens at the start of the wave. Let me clarify what I said earlier about the crystals not getting destroyed and all that business. So normally on a regular map, any crystal gets destroyed and you get destroyed. You know, very bad, not so good. But on this map, it's a little bit of a unique scenario because as long as you have one of your crystals alive, you're good. The only penalty for getting your crystals damaged or otherwise destroyed is when they get damaged, you lose a certain amount of your maximum DU, which you can't get back, which is kind of bad. And also, when they get destroyed, they will make a massive shockwave that kills all nearby enemies, towers, whatever it is. And you can imagine, since the towers that you placed on the crystal will also be gone, and also you've lost maximum DU, that can snowball really poorly. But it also means that if you want to do this map on like Nightmare or Ruthless or on super low stats, but on like hard difficulty, you can. It's actually not that hard because you can just place all of your towers around a single crystal and then just live off of that one crystal. And oh my god, my physical barriers have no HP. Good god. But again, as long as they don't damage your crystal too badly, it really isn't much of an issue, no matter what. I guess I should upgrade my auras and my physical beams a little bit more than I am right now. In case you're struggling any amount with the build for whatever reason, you can actually just go ahead and place down a couple of minions here and there, because those will be pretty helpful, like spider minions especially, because they'll web ogres and djinns and whatnot. Or you could just place down archer minions and replace basically every one of these physical barriers with a wall of archer minions and like a mage. And those guys are really nice because not only do they damage things, not for a lot of damage, but not only do they damage things, but they also don't get destroyed by the djinns, which is a really, really nice thing. Oh, I just realized something. Ah, right. I forgot, my damage reductions are not that good because I didn't upgrade my armor. Okay, let me show you guys how to upgrade your DPS armor so that you have good reductions. What you want to do is the entire time you're upgrading your armor, hold left shift, and what that'll do is you see how it went up to the 10th upgrade? Basically, all of your armor has a soft cap, which is normally like 30, or the number will change a little bit between the tiers of armor, but it's usually like around 30. And to upgrade past this soft cap, you can only upgrade it once every 10 upgrades. And the number that you want to get every single one of these reductions to on all 4 of your pieces of armor is going to be 41. So basically the entire time you're upgrading your armor, just hold left shift and then it'll upgrade up to the 10th upgrade. And then after it's done with that, it'll stop if it's already capped out. And then you can just keep holding shift and then just upgrade the generic. I'd focus on the generic until all of your stuff is soft capped at 30 or whatever the number is. And if you want, you can go all the way and make it up to 41. But in my opinion, the mana cost on that gets really expensive really fast, and we don't really have that much mana right now, so I don't really think it's worthwhile. But if you're really, really struggling, especially on difficulties like Nightmare and above, you will probably want to make sure that you have your damage reductions as high as they can possibly be. There we go, that's good enough. Now we have 90 in all of our damage reductions. Quick warning, quick bit of info, I guess. Whenever you're on Nightmare, or you're doing like an assault challenge of any kind, or Ruthless, you're going to have lower damage reductions than you do on Insane and below. And that's why you need to have 41 in each of these before you're good with upgrading your armor's reductions. Because if they're not 41 in each of them, then on Nightmare and Ruthless and also Assault challenges, whenever your damage reductions are reduced, you will need exactly 41 in all of your resistances to make sure that they are all capped out at the maximum of 90. And especially with a lot of the endgame content, it is very, very important to make sure that you have very high reductions. Oh, god damn it. I sure I can move my physical barrier. Oh, whatever, that's fine. As long as an ogre doesn't get over there and damage the crystal and one-shot it, it won't be that much of an issue. I'm just going to have to sell and replace this, but it is kind of annoying that it did happen. Alright, final wave time. So first things first, like I said earlier, I'm going to go ahead and replace this physical barrier. Then let's swap back to the primary character, our monk, and I'm going to add a couple of heroes. First one is going to be, I guess my huntress, because I want a huntress weapon from here. Although honestly, it doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to bring in my warden, because at least for this first go-around, it's kind of rough to deal with all the enemies, and as long as your warden is alive, all of her towers get an additional 33% damage boost, so that's going to be pretty helpful. And then the last character I'll bring in is, I guess my Eevee. I don't really know. You just need to bring in 4 characters. That's the most important part of this, but which 4 characters you bring in kind of depends on what rewards you want. And honestly, they're all fairly equal in being anywhere between mediocre and absolute peak, so I don't really put that much thought into it. I just go with whatever my gut tells me. But once all the ogres are dead, and pretty much all of the generic mobs, you don't really have to worry about much. You'll be left with a boatload, I really do mean like a boatload of regular like Djinns just everywhere, but Djinns can't actually destroy your crystal, so it doesn't really matter. Sure, they'll destroy like your, Wisp Ends, your buff beams, your everything, but again, they can't hit your crystal, so once everything else is dead, you're done with the map. Also a pretty good amount of experience. And we got a Squire Guardian. God damn it. Every time I roll the Guardians, I'm disappointed. Oh, we got a Huntress one, though. Oh, it's not that good, though. That's gross. And of course the Squire Guardian is great. Good lord. Now let's look at these Fissionables. Quad 500 Fissionable. By the way, the reason I say 500 is because you can only upgrade any of these stats up to 500, although as you can see, they can roll higher, up to 600. So there we go, Quad 500 Fissionable. This one doesn't have all the tower stats, but it might be good on something like an EV. This one is good on an Aura Monk or a Trap Huntress. And this one, not quite 500, but close enough. And of course, we don't have anything better, so I'm going to keep it. Now, the weapon rewards, the Quietus or whatever that you get for the character-specific things, they're probably worth looking at, but if they're Supreme or above in their quality, they're not worth looking at, but it's just very unlikely that you'll be able to use them by the time that they're actually going to be useful. Like, you'll outpace them very quickly. But the armor is very much always worth looking at, because again, it might be something crazy good, even though most of the time it won't be. Now, because we're going to do this map another, like, 2-3 times maybe, I'm going to go ahead and give the Warden our best Fissionable, and I'm going to give our Huntress, I'm going to give our Aura Monk this thing, the Fissionable that has range but no attack rate, and then I guess I'll give the EV the one that I was talking about earlier that is decent for an EV. I'll just give her this one, whatever. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this in the swap out folder. I'm depressed about this pet. Let's unlock all, sell all. And yeah, pretty good amount of mana from that as well. Certainly nothing awful. Now then, let's go ahead and repeat that another 2 to 3 times to make sure that every single one of our heroes has a quad 500 Fissionable. And also, of course, going gambling for a good tower stat weapon is pretty nice as well. Now I'm going to go do something that's a little bit abnormal or strange, but I'm going to do the Dance Dance Revolution machine during the wave. Once I have all my reflectors and buff beams up, the way that the wave is going to go is all of the chump regular mobs that can actually damage my crystal, they will all die to the auras, and then at some point in the wave, the Djinn will probably take down my auras or my reflectors or whatever it is, but by the time he's done that, I don't really care about it because he's the only enemy left, so my crystal can't get damaged. And by doing this, you save a good bit of time on every one of your runs. Hey, there we go. Perfect score. Hells yeah. There we go. Huntress Guardian. Hopefully it's a good Huntress Guardian. We've actually been getting pretty unlucky with them recently. It is not a good Huntress Guardian. Oh, we also got a Genie. Ooh, this is a Genie that has positive ability 1. It's Transcendent, which means we're going to need to level up a bit before we can use it, but it's certainly better than what we currently have. Fissionable. Ugh. Ugh. Oh. Oh. Wow, that is incredibly unlikely. Unlikely, unlucky, everything. I mean, I can use them, but I'm certainly not happy about it, that's for sure. No, Transcendent Quietus, Supreme Dynastat, and an Ultimate plus Hyper Rifle? Seriously? Okay, I mean, in theory, this could be a good DPS weapon for a Huntress, but, like, I'm not going to get to level 100 so I can use that. By the time we're level 100, we're not going to need anything like that. Whoa! Look at this! The armor here, very much worth looking at. Also, we got an ultimate piece of armor. Oh, that's funny. Neat. We got a Genie. Or not a Genie, we got a Pixie. That's what it was. And I forgot to put away my previous fissionables, as always. Alright, let's see. Of course, a Squire Guardian. I kind of want to keep a Pixie, so I will keep this one. Nice quad rough stats, but still quad stats. This one is good. This one is okay. And, okay, yeah. Other than this one, they're all pretty good, and that makes up for the last time. So we should just have one more completion before we're done. Oh, here it is. Ooh, look at that. The range is a little bit low, but for somebody like an EV, that is a phenomenal weapon. Alright, come on. Give me a Monk or a Huntress Guardian. Monk Guardian. Ooh, we got a Monk. We got 2 Monk Guardians. One of those has to be good. Come on. Mythical? Hey, let's go. Alright. It has 40 boost, it has 50 upgrades, and it has negative HP, but I don't care about that. And the other one? Damn. Damn. It doesn't have enough boost. But that's fine. Or not boost, sorry. It doesn't have enough upgrades. It needs at least 50. But that's fine. Let's see the fissionables. Nice. Yeah, wow. Hello. Jesus. Also another one. Cool. I think that's enough fissionables for all of our characters. Also, an ultimate plus fusion rift? Whoa. This is, like, unironically a very good DPS weapon. Well, I mean, not in, like, the grand scale of things, but this is, like, huh. Whoa! Look at this bad boy! That is a nice hyper rifle. Now then, we actually have a Monk Guardian, which is kind of the most important Guardian to get first if you can. Here's how you upgrade all of your Guardians. Exact same as your armor, just hold left shift the entire time, and every 10 upgrades, you can increase the number of defenses to boost all the way up to +6. That's why you need at least 50 upgrades on your thing. The blue arrow boost here, you can't upgrade it past like 20 if it is below 20, and it caps out its potency at 40, so you need to make sure that you just get one with at least 40. And the Guardian's range caps out at like 90. Although this doesn't really matter that much, but it's nice to have one that has a good amount of range, good amount of boost, and all the good business, because it means I can show you guys a really, really cool build that I have had in mind for a while. Now, if you want to do the build that I'm about to show you guys, you want to make sure that you have a good amount of tower range on your Aura Monk. Specifically, you want to have around like 2,000-ish. So just for a little bit, I would upgrade like maybe 50 or so points into the range on all of your armor, and maybe your pet if it's not upgraded. Won't cost that much mana, and more importantly, it might put you over the threshold to just barely be in that 2k aura range. In this case, we didn't get there, but that's fine. We'll probably get a better weapon. That'll push us over the edge in a second. Now, at this point, what we're going to do is go back to Halloween Spooktacular, because 1, we don't have good tower stat weapons for all of our heroes, and 2, now that we have a Monk Guardian, we can do this map really, really fast. So, go ahead and place down an aura stack. Not slow auras, but just a strength drain and an electric right there around those harpoons. One right around this corner on well, basically just right around the corner right here. And then one last aura stack, which is going to be, I think, somewhere around here-ish. That'll do just about fine. And then what we're going to do is swap over to our Series EV. We're going to dump down a 60U buff beam, a little something like this. If it doesn't reach all the way over, don't worry about it. Just do a little bit of this, and then sell your buff beam. And also, because I'm paranoid, we're going to have to place another buff beam just somewhere in here. I don't think that one will matter, but either way, you might be wondering, what the hell is this build? Trust me, it works. It works really well. Now, ideally, you would have a Huntress Guardian, but I don't have a Huntress Guardian, so the DPS is going to be a bit lower, meaning I'm going to have to tower boost more consistently. But if I press Control G here, you're going to see that all of these auras are now fucking massive. Now, again, their damage is a little bit lackluster because we don't have a Huntress Guardian. But once you get a Huntress Guardian along with your Monk Guardian, once you have these buff beams maxed out, you are basically just like complete chilling USA. These things will obliterate all of the enemies very, very easily. Although, unfortunately, because we have a little bit low tower range, these auras over here don't reach over to this spawn, or even where the spiders are over here. So for the sake of efficiency, to deal with those enemies, I'm going to have to go ahead and place down a stack of auras over there. But again, if you had like 2 to 2.5k in your aura range, that really shouldn't be an issue, and you will have an incredibly, incredibly easy time with the map. Oh yeah, the Wyvern Wave, you won't have enough tower range unless you have like 4k to reach into this like spawn area with them. So just go ahead and kill them yourself. This is why we have a DPS weapon. That was so nice, so easy. I love doing this build whenever I can. The only problem is it does rely on getting a Monk Guardian early on, which is kind of RNG, but I mean, either way, you can just go ahead and keep repeating this map until you get a Monk Guardian. Or alternatively, another thing that you can do if you want is you can do this map, or you can do like, not this map, but if you do Maga Citadel on like hardcore, on wave 25, you're basically guaranteed to get the Monk Guardian or whatever Guardian, depending on what hero you have out. And I think they're basically guaranteed to be good enough to meet all the requirements that I mentioned earlier. But I mean, either way, Halloween Spectacular is just a really good map to farm for like every reason. So we're going to be here a lot. It's just having the Monk Guardian speeds things up and just makes life a hell of a lot easier. I highly recommend at this point in time, just like pull up a YouTube video or something you want to watch on the side and just watch that, because, I mean, not exactly the most engaging gameplay, right? But at the same time, you can go for the 2 Huntress and Monk Guardians, and maybe even a better Genie while you're at it. And look at that, we are done yet again. We got another Monk Guardian. Hells yeah. And, aw, it doesn't have enough boost. Except the Squire does for some reason. That was a really good tower stat Squire. Now the Mad Jack. This one can range in the damage between like 7,000 up to 30-something thousand-ish. And we do want a good Mad Jack for DPS later on, but otherwise it is just a tower stat weapon for our Jester / Series EV. Crummy Nosferatu. I guess not actually that crummy. This is... hold on a moment. That is a better Nosferatu than what we have equipped on our current character, isn't it? Yeah, just about. Not too bad. We have a Bone Cutter that is terrible, no good tower stats, and not really a good DPS weapon either. And a Spider Bow that is... it's not that good, but it has ability too, which we want on our Jester, so I might keep it as a swap out. And then the armor, this time the armor wasn't amazing, but, you know, you can't always win. An Animus? Really? I have never once seen an Animus drop from here before. That is incredibly rare. Oh, This is an okay Mad Jack to use for DPS. Not great, but perfectly fine. Wait, can't I just do this? I can. I've been stupid this entire time. I forgot I could just do that. And that one buff beam will reach everything because... I mean, it's getting boosted by the monk guardian. Yes. All right, guardians, please. No guardians. We did get a genie though, so let's see. Is he any good? Eh. Better DPS genie, that's for sure, but not really good on the ability one. God, the final wave is so fast. It always surprises me. Ooh, we got a Hunter's Guardian. Nice. Please be a good one. You are a... Oh, you don't have enough upgrades. I mean, I guess it's better than what we currently have, so I'll just dump some points into it, but... Eh. Wow, okay. This Mad Jack is... Yeah, no, this is an upgrade for our series Eevee. That's nice. This Nosferatu is a pretty good upgrade for our current DPS weapon, so I'm pretty happy about that. Granted, the HP is a little bit abysmal, and it doesn't give us tower boost, but I'm not really using this as a tower boost weapon, so I don't really mind. There we go. 2 more... Ooh, Monk Guardian as well. I think we already have a good enough Monk Guardian, right? But I will not oppose a second one. I'll say that right now. Especially when it has so much hero HP, oh my goodness. Whoa, that is a rather nifty ability 1 armor. Not too bad. Put you in the swap out folder where I've been putting everything else because I am lazy. The final wave goes by so fast. God. Damn. This is depressing. This is so depressing. Imagine what could have been, you know? Oh. Oh. I mean, this isn't good enough, but damn. Has the upgrades, just doesn't have enough boost. Ultimate plus Bone Cutter. Hello. It is awful. But this does bring a good opportunity to talk about something. I'm currently on local mode, which means that if I get any ultimate plus gear, it is going to be probably like significantly better than whatever you would get on not local. It's just how the game works. On ranked, you get worse ultimate pluses than you do on local. So just keep that in mind. But everything else should be the exact same. Give me Huntress, give me Huntress, give me Huntress. Me want Huntress, me you eat Huntress, me you Huntress, me you want. Huntress. Mein goodness. Das ist eine Huntress. Shit. It's awful. Another monk animus as well. Why are we getting these? Okay, wow. That is a much better... the charge speed kind of sucks, but is otherwise a much better DPS weapon than we currently have. Still not getting lucky on the Nosferatus and tower stats, which is a bit surprising, to be honest. Give me 100 Guardian, please. Release me. Release me. God damn it. We got an Apprentice Guardian. And it meets requirements, of course. God damn. What is this luck? Or unluck? I guess it's, you know, somewhat to be expected, but it does not feel particularly great. That is awful. That is depressing. That is also depressing. 100 Guardian! 200 Guardians! Oh my god! Oh my lord. The RNG fest is over. Mashallah. Alright, it is approximately 1 a.m. I woke up about 2 hours ago from my 1-hour nap that I took at 1 p.m. And the next challenge that we have to do is getting ourselves a mana gathering weapon, which is going to be on Insane Hardcore Forced Ochre Crush. This is going to be a pretty easy map because we're going to DPS the hell out of everything, and on Insane we deal crazy damage, and that's pretty much it. The build is like really simple. It's just a ton of mortar turrets, more or less, and then a stack of ores, a wall, all that good business. But like honestly, it just needs to be something that distracts all the ogres, and that's just what the mortar turret is best at. And don't get me wrong, they'll deal good damage, but like we're dealing the good damage. They're dealing okay damage. We're dealing the good damage. All right, first things first, we're gonna place a slow and an ensnare, a slow and a strength drain, basically as far forward as we can over there, because well, there's nothing on the inside to worry about. It's just a ton of ogres from the outside. Then we're gonna swap over to our series Eevee. We're going to place down a couple of very specific walls, reflections, and a single buff beam in the middle. Have I shown my stats? I don't know if I've shown my stats. Nothing crazy. The Eevee does have quite higher stats than everybody else, but that's just because she's got 2 weapons. Go ahead and inside this tree, place down a 4du physical beam. Around the sunflower area, place down a 1du reflector. From this bush, go all the way to the right, placing down 1du reflectors all the way there. And then over here, a 4du physical wall. Although, honestly, you could make it a 3du. And then a 1du reflection beam right there. And that's it. That's... Oh, not that's it. I always forget about this, but there's a buffy down here. Okay, now that's it. Did I forget the chest? No, I picked up the chest. Next up is going to be swapping over to our hermit, because otherwise this build will completely fail, and we will crash and burn and die, and things will be awful. He does not have a fissionable because I am stupid. We're going to place down a 2du web wall right here. This one's going to do a lot of work, and then we're going to place down, just for insurance, a pylon somewhere like that. That will do just fine. And then another pylon, well, not just yet, but later on we'll place another pylon there, and then place down a forest golem right here. That forest golem, the most essential thing you will have on the entire map, because it just means that every single ogre that spawns in will think, ah yes, there's a crystal right here. Time to go attack the forest golem. I don't know what it is about the forest golem, but he just like takes the aggro from literally everything on the entire map. Personally, I'm not going to complain, but it is a little strange. Very much so, however, it is a very, very cool mechanic. I am a massive fan of mechanics like that. But I mean, the first wave is just very simple. Kill all the ogres, maybe leave yourself some mana left over. If you don't want a hero boost for all your damage the way that I am with like a genie, you could upgrade like your Jester's Staff, the pumpkin thrower, and it'll deal like more damage per, you know, attack than I am dealing with my current weapon while hero boosting. Stabs are just really powerful like that. Now let's go back on that hermit and place down the rest of the towers. Did I call this hermit a warden earlier? I probably did. I do that a lot. I'm very bad with that kind of a thing. I just do that way too much. It's fine though. We're going to place down a nature pylon right here. Now let's go over to... Holy shit, your sword is massive. Oh, I have... I never paid attention to that. Our countess. So, we're going to stack a ton of towers here. First of all, one mortar turret facing that way, another mortar turret facing that way, and then every one of the other mortar turrets straight down this hallway. We need to make sure that this area is getting pummeled constantly 24/7. And in the middle of my sentence, I don't know what happened, but something got into like my nose or something, and it sounded weird. Anyways, that's going to be it for the entire build. You might be wondering, why no minions? Not only are they not necessary, but the spiders, they just don't do anything. Otherwise, you would actually benefit a ton from having spiders. It's just, they don't do anything. Oh yeah, let me show you guys how to upgrade these staves, because I need to equip them as well. Magic, we're going to use what? This one? No, we're going to use this one. So, first things first, you want to get the projectile speed maxed out, and then also the charge speed up to 80. The charge speed is very important, needs to be at least 80. I would not recommend making it higher. I don't think it's really worthwhile. And upgrade your additional projectiles along the way. And then I'm just going to dump 120 damage, or upgrades, into the base damage. And look at that, we have upgraded our staff. So, what we're going to do is bring in as our secondary character, our Jester. Not because of the Wheel of Fortuna, but instead because of the fact that it can use a staff. So you could really use any character that can use a staff for this. Then we're going to bring in our summoner, Lenny, who currently has a Huntress and a Monk Guardian, and instead will be swapped out to have 2 Huntress Guardians. Sure, this one's good enough. Honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. And then last character is going to be our Countess. Go ahead and move over your Jester. I like placing him just like on top of the stack of towers. Not really much reason to place him anywhere else. And then I like bringing over the Summoner and just dumping him right next to the stack of mortar turrets. And last but not least, our Countess, who we are going to put in some fuck-ass random corner. Yeah, around this log should do just fine. By the way, why is your sword so massive? Anyways, first round, we're not going to do much on any of the other characters. Honestly, we're just going to go ahead and upgrade all of our buildings. Now, because we're upgrading all of our buildings, you'd probably be better off with, like, a Jester or an Upgrader Adept to do this, but I'm lazy. And honestly, like, this is not that hard. The only things that I would recommend upgrading, like, urgently for the first round, try and make sure that you get your physical wall maxed out. Try and make sure that you get the nature pylon next to it maxed out. And then, like, the web wall, I guess. And don't really worry about the other nature pylon or the other wall. Like, they're good to get maxed out, but frankly speaking, it's, They're not nearly as important as this one is, because they're not going to have nearly the same amount of ogres and whatnot. Mainly forest ogres. You might be wondering, what are the nature pylons for? Well, they're just for insurance. That's literally it. If you're super confident in your stats, you don't need them whatsoever. But the nature pylons, they just do a really, really good job of making sure that even if a forest ogre decides to hit your wall, your wall doesn't go down, and therefore you don't go down. Quick little thing about this map. The rewards on this map are actually pretty good when it comes to the accessories, and also, especially when it comes to the weapons. The quality of weapon that you get from here, even on Insane, is really, really good. And honestly, with 2k stats, you could probably manage to do this map with a similar build on, like, Nightmare, or hell, even Ruthless, I think. But it's just not really worth it because since the reward quality on this map is so goddamn high, you would just end up in a situation where you just have like a ton of ultimate or like, I don't know, supreme gear that you just don't really have a usage for because you can't equip it yet. And when it comes to a mana gathering weapon, which is the main reason that we are here, you don't need something that's amazing, you just need something that can do the job. Later on, you can go for something that's amazing, but honestly, even then, I don't know. I mean, just do it like once on Ruthless, get yourself like a plus 600 ability 1 thing, and then you're good. Oh yeah, Forest Ogres. We start getting Forest Ogres. Now, don't let these numbers deceive you in the middle of the screen. There aren't, in fact, 2 Forest Ogres. There's a minimum of 2 Forest Ogres. There's a maximum of 2 plus 8 Forest Ogres, because every single one of those goddamn Gobblecopters, they can be a Forest Ogre. Which is very cool, because it means that depending on how lucky/unlucky you get, you could just, like, lose the lottery and end up with, like, a trillion Forest Ogres. Now then, before you start any wave with the Forest Ogres, go onto your Jester, and roughly down this hallway area, hold down left click and then right click to get him to start shooting, and then go back to your primary screen so he continues shooting. What we're going to do is basically sit like around this point here, ideally with good amount of tower boost and hero boost, but mainly hero boost. And we're just going to shoot down this hallway with a genie pet. And then whenever enemies start getting near, start your tower boost, and then also start your hero boost. And that's it. That's literally all you're doing for the entirety of this map. Like, there's not really much going on here. By the way, because the loot quality is so high here on this map, one of the really nice benefits of that is the fact that you can just go ahead and do this a single time, and you will get a mana gathering weapon that's good enough on your first go. At least it's very, very likely that you will. I've done this a lot of times, and every single time I have gotten a good enough mana gathering weapon to go until endgame. Now that we're at the end of the wave, I'm actually going to do something where I just go out here and kill everything on my monk. This isn't necessary, it just speeds up the round a good little bit. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of stupid that I continue doing Halloween Spooktacular like the entire time, because at the end of the day, this map can also give you Guardians, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's not the same drop chances as it is on Halloween Spooktacular, but we need to do this map like at least once, so no matter what, it's going to be happening. So I guess, like, realistically speaking, since we don't really need any Guardians or pretty much anything other than like a DPS pet, the moment that we finished Moonbase, we could have just like jumped over here and, you know, done this. Although I think at the moment we don't actually have like a really good Huntress Guardian. Well, like, we don't have 2 really good Huntress Guardians, we only have 1. So I guess I don't really mind it that much. Honestly, it might be worthwhile to set up your It might be worthwhile to set up your Jester using a Nosferatu rather than the Jester Staff, whatever the thing is, the Pumpkin Staff. Because this thing has like way, way better area of effect than the Staff does. So, like, you would have to be less precise in your placement of your mouse one, your cursor. But honestly, I have never once had a problem with the placement of the cursor. It just always works out. And I think a good portion of that is because of the fact that it just deals such crazy damage, so it doesn't really matter whether or not it's hitting every projectile every time. It deals more than enough damage for it to not matter. And that is it for the map. Not too hard, pretty damn easy. Oh yeah, we got accessories too, and a genie. Hopefully that genie has good ability 1. The accessories you get, they can be pretty good, but they do require you to be level 83 to use, which, I mean, you could get to level 83, but I just wouldn't do it yet. Later on, maybe, but not yet. There we go, Transcendent Boulder Thrower, and then 3 Mythicals. Alright, let me lock this one, and lock this one, and the rest of them as well. By the way, you can see that the stats on these are actually, like, not that bad. So it's probably a decent idea if you want to just like farm this map for a monk weapon on all your characters. Although frankly speaking, if you're going to farm any map for a monk weapon, this is probably not the best one. Armor, as always, is worth looking at, but probably not anything good. Accessories, the Supreme ones especially worth looking at. But even the non-accessories, even the non-Supremes are good because, like, look at this, you know? Or even look at this. A lot of this stuff can be used on a bunch of our heroes, at least for like ability 1 boosting or stuff like that. Now when it comes to deciding which of these to use, basically just look at whichever one gives you the most ability 1, and then after that it needs to meet a single weird requirement. Go ahead and equip whatever genie you're going to use on your monk. This one isn't what I'm going to use because it has negative ability 1, but it's the only one that I can use currently because this character isn't 78 yet. Then when you're looking at your mana gathering weapons, you probably need one that has more than 55 upgrades. Around like 150 is what I would say is enough. So like this one is probably what we're going to end up using in the end game, but for the moment I'll show it off with this one. First thing you do, max out the projectile speed bonus, no question. After that, increase the range damage all the way up until you get +4 additional projectiles because that is the maximum. Then just go ahead and equip it, and look at the damage that you deal on Nightmare and above. You need to make sure that you are dealing at least 2100 damage per projectile. Probably not too much more than that, but at least 2100. I would recommend just putting like 50 points into the range damage, maybe even more. And we do look at that, we are dealing 2100 plus damage per shot. I'm actually going to put another like 10 or 20 upgrades into it because on Ruthless, the enemies get some sort of damage reduction, I'm pretty sure. So I'd like to make sure that we are always dealing at least 2100 damage. By the way, the reason it's that number is because the way that genies work, 2100 damage is the point where the mana collection bonus per projectile hitting the enemy caps out, something along those lines. And also, when it comes to the mana collection bonus itself, you want to have this be like 29,500 or some number like that. I don't remember. That's really old information. Go look up the wiki page for the genies, and that'll give you more information. Now, at this point, you have a decision to make. You can go for level 78 on all of your builders, which I highly, highly recommend. But at this point, if you want to, you can dump like 100-ish upgrades into the damage for all of your armor, and I really do mean the damage, not anything else. And make sure that your character's damages are all like 2,000, 2,500-ish, and then just go straight into Deeper Well. I'm not going to do this because, I'm going to be honest, like, you can do it, it's just not really worthwhile to. Having those extra levels is really nice for sorting your gear later on, but if you want to, you can just go straight into Deeper Well and do the end game armor farm, whatever call it. Now, me personally, what I recommend doing, because it's just really easy to and kind of why not, is getting your characters up to 78 on Embermount, except this time, doing the map on Ruthless Hardcore. The build is mostly the same, except you can get away with just a single aura stack at each crystal, and also a single stack of traps. And also, you want to swap up the traps that you're using so that they're just a little bit more efficient. So, go ahead and place down a snare and a strength drain, basically like as close to the crystal as you can place it, and do the exact same thing for the other crystal. Still not using electric auras, not because they're not good, but mainly just because of the fact that, to be honest, I want to get the XP multiplier on this character. Buff beams are actually the exact same, along with the reflectors. Just make it like an A shape, and then put a buff beam straight through the middle of it. I think if you want, you can actually make these reflectors like 3DU on every single one of them, rather than having a single 1DU reflector, but honestly, I'm so conditioned from doing it the way that I've done it for so long that I'm just going to keep doing it with a 1DU. Now here is where one of the major differences is. On your Huntress, you're going to go ahead and place down Inferno traps and also oil traps. All of them will be placed like roughly around this spot for this crystal, you know, just dump them on the same spot. And the same thing over here for this crystal. Again, making them like basically as close as you can to the crystal. I think there's also a bit of a difference with like the mortar turrets and whatnot because you have a little bit less mana overall, but honestly, it's mostly like the exact same thing. 3 mortar turrets on each crystal. Dude, this sword is massive, Jesus Christ. Now, you don't have enough mana left over to place down 2 harpoon turrets, so what I normally do is just place down like 1 harpoon turret, I don't know, like over there, and then a bouncer blockade over at the stack of towers. The bouncer blockade's purpose is to deal with the spiders, because everything is going to have a ton of HP, and you don't want your stuff getting wet. Now, out of all these characters, the EV beams will reflect projectiles, because the reflections are reflecting, and that's going to damage enemies, so she's not viable for the 1.3 times multiplier. The Huntress has Inferno traps, so obviously she's not viable either. And, you know, the Countess, I mean, the Countess has the Countess towers, so she's not viable for that either. So the only character here who can actually get the XP multiplier at the moment is going to be our Aura Monk, because she is not dealing damage with her auras, just slowing down enemies. Speaking of slowing down enemies, you will notice the enemies are actually quite a bit slower than they are on Nightmare. But that's fine, because there's also a lot less of them. Now, if you want to, and in fact, I would probably recommend this, just keep an eye on where the spiders are, but you can drop down and upgrade your buff beams like once or twice just to increase the DPS of your towers. It will help out like a good bit, but by no means is it necessary. I guess you could also just dump down a couple of towers while you're here as well, if you're on your Countess, but I guess I'll do this. Why not? For fun. Oh, spider almost hit me. Yeah, but like if you've given your things like 2 upgrades, I wouldn't really bother going any more than that because it's, well, it's just not really a good idea. You're gonna get damaged and then you're gonna lose your XP multiplier. Now you will notice that this takes like quite a bit longer than it did on Nightmare. But it's fine, because if you're on Ruthless difficulty, you get an additional 1.3 times XP multiplier, so it makes it worth it in the end. And would you look at that? We are done. Now, I actually don't remember the exact amount of experience required for level 78 off the top of my head, but it's some amount. But, I mean, look at this. 12 million experience on this character. Not too bad in my opinion. And of course, one other benefit is that you can continue grinding armor here. The armor that you get here is like pretty good. It's definitely a good bit better than what you get on Nightmare. But honestly, it's not that much of a massive step up in general. It's just more likely you'll get like quad 100 or maybe like quad 150s. So overall, it's a nice stat boost, but the armor you were getting as a end of map reward just on pretty much any of the maps we were doing earlier can be way, way better. Now we gotta do the Deeper Well campaign on Ruthless Hardcore. The build is gonna be really simple, because I mean it's Deeper Well. But the first wave is kind of the hardest wave, and everything else after that is just whatever. You do get an end of map reward for doing this, but like it's just generic armor and some weapons. No accessories, no pets, at least as far as I'm aware, so none of that stuff. First wave though, we're gonna go ahead and jump on our monk. You could do this on your jester, but I'm doing it on my monk, because I just like running around the monk. That's pretty much the only reason. He's still spec'd for damage, so we can just go ahead and hero boost, and the moment that we can hero boost, we're good. We can just keep the hero boost going for like as long as we need to. We're just going to wait until the ogre spawns, and then go wherever it goes. There it is. And we're going to DPS down the ogre. Doing our best to dodge things, because I still don't have that much HP. But once you get rid of the other, like, you know, basic chump mobs, you don't really have much to worry about. There we go. You can just keep the aggro of the ogre, and you'll be a-okay. I would recommend that when the ogre dies, you stop hero boosting, or at least like save one of the spiders, so that you can put some mana down later on for your other builders. Like so. And there we go. This is just about the end of the first wave. Not too bad. Now what is left in the building? Very basic things. Here's what we're going to do now. We're going to swap over to our Series EV, and we're going to place down a, as far left as we can here, honestly, a 40U-ish physical beam right there. Oh, we're going to waste a lot of mana here, and then another 40U-ish physical beam right there. And then we're going to dump down, mana, no, a 40U tower buff beam right here. In case your tower buff beam doesn't reach far enough, don't worry about it. Just place one inside your auras, and now it should. Or you can upgrade both and then sell one, do all that good business. And then we're going to go ahead and swap over to our Huntress. This is absolutely necessary. We need to place down over here a gas trap and a darkness trap. The darkness trap to make the Djinns lose their element, and the gas trap to both stop the Djinns and mainly the Sharkans, because otherwise the Sharkans will move your walls. And if they move your walls, it's over. It is completely over. Now, this is going to be a bit of a weird one, but I'm kind of testing something out here. I'm going to go ahead and swap to my, my big guy here, because I feel like this is a better class. So, we're going to place down just a bunch of seed bomb towers facing forward, basically. As many as we can, and then I don't know, like, yeah, a web wall. That's it. Now I'm going to go back onto this guy, and just upgrade the tower buff beam to maximum, and DPS things down as we need to. Nothing crazy complicated, just very basic stuff, all things considered. I should be tower boosting, or no, I will be tower boosting. I'll tower boost later on, but for the moment, we are just going to sit here and upgrade everything. Okay, I'm actually going to sell these guys, because I'm beginning to realize they don't aggro things correctly. Mortar turrets it is, I suppose. It was a good idea, but unfortunately these things just don't shoot fast enough to be worthwhile, so we're selling all of them, along with the Forest Ogre, because I'm lazy. And we're going to have a mortar turret, one facing like basically only to the left, and then one facing basically only to the right. And I guess that's it for what we can afford. We should probably have one facing down the middle, but that's fine. We're just going to go ahead and instead place down a couple of reflectors, one right over here, like so, and then one right over here, like so. And also, screw it, you know what, why not, one more in the middle. Now, I'd be surprised if anything from the ogres can get through that. And honestly, just for fun, let's place down another web wall over here. It'll increase the DPS of our turrets by quite a bit. There we go. Honestly, for the sake of efficiency, I'm just gonna dump in Lenny, my summoner, and just put him on top of, like, here. By the way, there is actually like zero reason to do this final wave with 4 heroes. The only reason that I'm doing it is to flex. Nice. Campaign finished. Oh, we do get pets. I think they're crummy pets in general, yeah. There's like the Hotkeys and all them. Weapons, which maybe are worth looking at, but probably not at this point. Armor, which definitely... Wow, hello. Very much worth looking at, as always, but again, still more likely than not for it to be useless. And pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, we gotta respec all of our heroes and do a little bit of upgrading gear and whatnot to prepare. Now, before we get into the final part of the video, deep well pre strategy, all that business, here are my current stats, and you might notice something. I have pretty low tower HP. I don't have any tower HP on this thing, and I've put most of my points when I upgraded my armor into damage. And there's a reason for this. So here's the thing. On both our trap character and also our aura monk, we have a situation where we don't really care at all about their HP. We only really care about their range, rate, and damage because they just deal a ton of damage, particularly the trap huntress. I noticed that her trap radius didn't change all that much between having, 15 or 1600 in here and having 1900, but her damage did, so I respect her into pure damage. But she doesn't care about HP, and neither does our trap huntress or our aura monk. That's because we're constantly going to be using this guy, or alternatively this guy, to tower boost the entire time. And because we constantly have a tower boost going, the HP on the auras and all that doesn't really matter that much. Here's going to be our, our Countess. Again, put all of her points into damage. I didn't do more than 50 points in any given armor piece because mana cost is a bit high, but ideally you want to have around like 2.5k in your base damage if you're going to be doing this. Her range is a bit low, which I think because her weapon doesn't have range, but it is what it is. Ideally you would have higher stats so you could just continue farming. You can go continue farming your Halloween Spectacular for that. But the stats are, in general, actually a bit lower than I would like, especially on our Hermit. He just does not have good stats, but it's fine. We will manage, probably. Oh, also, I respect this guy to be full into a tower boost. And here is our Jester, and here is our Lenny Summoner. Let's get into it, shall we? This is going to be a roughly 3-hour-long endeavor, which is going to be awful, but it is what it is. You actually get a good amount of chests, a good amount of mana from these chests at the very beginning, which is pretty nice. Now, when you're doing this farm, you actually want to start on wave, I think it's, you want to start on wave 21, or 22, if I remember correctly. But we're going to start on this wave because easier. Do dump a buff beam down. The first wave, there's not really much to talk about, so I'm just going to swap over to, not this character, I'm going to swap over to my, this guy and give him a genie just for a second so that we can get some mana. The enemies here, don't worry about them if you don't have a good weapon. I mean, you should, but don't worry about the enemies at the first wave because, yeah, they don't have that much HP. We're just here to gather a good bit of mana so that we can be ready for our other characters. Now that we have a bit of mana, let's go ahead and do the build for realsies. Now, given that we're on pure strategy, there's something I have to mention. The DU cost on pure strategy increases with every copied tower. So for example, this one, 4 DU as normal, but if I place another one that's supposed to be 4 DU, it's actually 7 DU. Pure strategy just works like that. It's funky. Depends on the map, depends on the crystal, but for the moment, that means that we don't want too many of the same tower. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go onto our Huntress, and we're going to place down a oil trap, gas trap, and an inferno trap. Then we're going to go onto our EV, and we're going to place down a buff beam. Somewhere like this will be doing just fine. And then we're going to place down another buff beam up here, like so. Now, after we have that stuff placed down, we want to go onto our Aura Monk and place our auras kind of like as far away as you can get it, but also as close to this area. So personally, I just always like dumping it right behind this thing because it's an easy spot, and I always remember. We're going to place down Electric Snare and a Slow Aura, very easy. And then after that, we're going to go onto our Jester and do something very, very strange, which is we need to get negative range, or at least 0 range. So we're going to unequip every piece of gear that we have that gives us positive range, so that we can be at 0/negative. And there we go, we're at 0/negative. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move all of these traps right here on top of this tile. And as long as the traps are within the range of the buff beam, you'll be a-okay. Oops, I just realized something. I actually placed down my... Whoops, not character. I placed down my buff beam wrong here because the boost isn't lasting whenever I transfer the position. So all you need to do to fix that is just... There we go. And then go back onto our Jester and move our last trap, or no, second to last trap over there. No, that is the last trap, okay. Now, if you aren't reaching, which we are just barely doing so, what you can do is just upgrade both buff beams just a little bit. And then you can sell your original buff beam, and voila, they are all being boosted. This thing is boosting 6 towers, 3 auras, 3 traps. Very, very nice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to swap over to our... what was the next character? Oh, tower stacking, right. This is going to be a weird, funky, gross one, so I apologize, but we're going to tower stack on a couple of characters. Well, I say a couple, but it's only 2 characters. We're going to tower stack on our Bouncer Blockade character. So here's going to be the very basic setup that we use for the map. All the way back here, we're going to place down the 3 towers for that character, and then 2 towers for this one. So, dump down a Shroom Pit, a C-Bomb Tower facing straight forward, and then a Forest Golem. And then on this character, we're going to dump down a Mortar Turret facing straight forward, basically towards the crystal, and then a bowling ball turret. Words. And then after that, you can go ahead and leave on her, because she doesn't matter anymore. Now, with the leftover DU, we're going to place a very, very strange reflector directly on top of all of our towers. Now, you might be wondering, what the hell are you doing? So there's a reason for this. As strange as it sounds, this is really effective later on for keeping your towers alive. All the spiders will die before they're able to actually like damage your tower stack and web them. And also they don't aggro very well either. But besides the point, later on in pure strategy waves, you have Jhin blitzes, which is where like a ton of Jhins spawn. And while the majority of them get stopped by the gas trap and all this good business here, not all of them. So to prepare for that, we have a reflection right here. What they'll do is they'll go over your stack of towers, and then they'll shoot down directly from above onto your stack of towers. For these first little waves, you can go ahead and jump onto your Tower Boost Monk, and then also bring in your Upgrader Apprentice. Not necessary to bring her in, but I'm going to bring her in because it makes upgrading a lot easier. So all we're going to do is just press Ctrl-G, drop some mana to our Upgrader Apprentice, and then have her start using her upgrade aura. And then that's it. We're just going to drop mana periodically, and then she's going to upgrade all of our towers to max. No, are we done? Okay, we're done. Nice. Not too long. If you start on a later wave, you can get everything upgraded like immediately, but I mean, this is fine. Very quickly though, if you are starting on wave like 22 or 23, you want to give your apprentice a guardian pet of some kind, whichever one you're missing, because it's going to be rough otherwise. Now, at this point, if you want, you can place down a couple of spiders over here. Basically, anything that you place past these traps, like the center of where these traps are, it will be fine. You can just dump down a million spiders and a couple of mages, and they'll help you out with the DPS on a lot of the mobs. But I'm just lazy, so I'm not going to bother. But here is going to be your setup. Your primary hero is going to be your Jester, who, wow, you have horrible cast rate. That is awful. Your secondary hero is going to be your Tower Boost Monk. And you're going to place him, I don't know, like somewhere over here, I guess. Your third hero is going to be your secondary Tower Boost Monk, in case the first one goes down, which it will, by the way. And your last character is going to be Lenny, your summoner that has 2 Huntress Guardians. Very quickly though, this summoner has 2 Huntress Guardians, but one of them has only +4 to the number of defenses to boost rather than +6. This might sound weird, but that's actually fine, because The only towers that you're boosting with your Huntresses are going to be the Electric Aura, the 3 traps, which is a total of 4 towers, and then the Bowling Ball turret, the Mushroom Spore Tower, the Forest Golem, and the Mortar turret, which is like 9 towers or something like that. Basically, you're not boosting that many towers, so even if you don't have the proper plus 12 from both of these, it's fine. You need to only have like plus 9. But otherwise, the boosts do need to be maxed out. Now, here's the thing. The smart move to do is, because later on we're going to get Dark Elf Warriors, and the Dark Elf Warriors are really rough to deal with, the best way to survive them is to place all of your characters on top of the Forest Golem at the start, because the Dark Elf Warriors have a really tough time getting up there. But honestly, that's a lot of hassle, so I'm just going to rely on us having good enough DPS, and I'm going to leave my heroes down here. But later on, if you're really struggling, you might want to place all of your characters at the start on top of your Forest Golem to keep them away from the Dark Elf Warriors. And then later on, when the Djinn Blitz happens, drop all of your characters down here so that the Djinns don't damage the hell out of them, and also so that your towers stay alive, and you should be good. Although that strategy does kind of break down starting on wave 27, but that's for way later. Anyways, just go ahead, press Ctrl G, and start tower boosting on this guy, then swap back to your primary screen, and that's it. Every once in a while, your tower boost will go down at certain points, like when you have a ton of enemies, waves like 15 and onwards, and then that's when you swap to your other hero and start tower boosting on him, but it's fairly chill. Once you got that first person tower boosting, you go onto your primary Jester and you use triple sword to do a ton of damage to all the enemies. It is 43% of the HP of every enemy alive, so pretty good. Alternatively, if you want, you can do a Eternia Crystal, a Goblin, and then another Goblin, and this will debuff enemies, which causes them to deal less damage and also take more damage. So they deal only 50% of their normal damage, and at the same time, they take around 50% extra damage. That lasts for a total of, I think, around 14 seconds, so keep that in mind. Now, one last secret thing that you can do, which is, I don't know if I would recommend it until certain points, is do triple Goblin and gold all your enemies. This will gold Sharkins, this will gold Djinns, this will gold pretty much everything. These gold enemies, they take, I'm pretty sure, reduced damage, and on top of that, they just have a ton of HP, so it, like, kind of is not really worthwhile. The only reason you'd want to do that is because golden enemies have, like, a 20%-ish increase in their armor quality or something along those lines. So, like, if you can get away with it, then do it. But otherwise, honestly, just do triple sword or the debuff. By the way, very quickly on the debuff, a bit of a danger zone. If you do 2 Eternia Crystals and a Goblin instead of 2 Goblins and an Eternia Crystal, which is easy to mess up, you will actually buff the enemies, which doubles the damage that they do and doubles the damage, or and halves the damage that they take. So it's pretty risky. And in general, honestly, I just recommend doing triple sword. Frankly speaking, if you don't mind doing a bit of extra micro, it is better to have 2 Jesters in here with ability 2 than it is to have 2 Monks, because sure, your ability 1 will go on cooldown at some point, but your Jesters will literally kill everything on the map, or more or less kill everything on the map every couple of seconds. Look at this. We are finally getting a couple pieces of Transcendent gear. Now, it's not going to be amazing Transcendent gear by any means. I mean, it's just like very beginner. But later on, you'll get a lot more of it and a lot better quality gear. I'm going to go ahead and start picking up anything that looks like it's good for tower stats, just to show you guys what you can expect to get on wave like 15 and all that good business. I didn't go through everything because I got really lazy, but I went through like 50 items, and this is approximately what I got. And you can see it is roughly on par with what we got like equipped right now, except it can go all the way up to 200 in any of its given stats. And we're only on wave 15. I guess it really isn't worth looking at gear up until you get to wave like 20 or something, but if you don't have any good gear yet, this is a good way to start getting into the higher tiers of armor. Behold the Djinn Rush. So at some point in the waves, you'll get like a gazillion Djinns coming in. And if you have your tab boost at this point, you're chilling. But I would actually save your hero's Jester Wheel for when this comes in, if you're like thinking it's going to come in sometime soon. You'll get a feel for it, because these guys don't have that much health. Later on, they're going to have 100 million HP, and being able to do an instant 42 million damage is really nice. But this is also a good opportunity to show off something else, which is this is actually one of the rare times where it's probably good to do a triple golden enemies. Not right now, but now, because look at this. Pretty much all of the Djinns are dead, and all that's left are the Sharkin. And the Sharkin, well, they can't get forward at all because they're going to get stopped by the gas draft no matter what. Meaning it's essentially free to make these guys golden and get a bit of a quality increase from their drops, but by no means is it necessary. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But if you can, it's a nice bonus. Now here's another thing I have to mention, which is the tower boost. Around the 900-ish enemy mark, it depends, it changes as time goes on, you will lose your tower boost. That's why you have a secondary monk to start his tower boost. And he only needs to have his tower boost last for about like 20-ish seconds, and at that point, you can go ahead and swap back to your main tower boost. So it's not that bad, it's fairly easy, all things considered. And then you swap back to this one, you start shooting, and you hide the other screens. It's pretty easy, but it is just something you have to deal with. I mean, you're going to endgame in like, what, 6 to 8-ish hours, something like that. Don't be surprised if the build isn't particularly amazing. Did not mean to do that. Hey! Well, look at that. The very first of many Dark Elf warriors. I fumbled my my wheel there, so I think he got a bit far forward, but if he does that on the later waves, he probably won't one-shot you guys, but he'll get pretty close. And unless the bowling ball turret bounces him away, you're kind of screwed. So I have to admit something here. I don't really know of a good way to deal with them. The bowling ball turret just hits them a lot, but I don't know. I've tried bouncer blockades, I've tried a lot of things, but nothing really seems to deal with them that well. If you find a way to deal with them that is like really efficient and easy, then please mention it in the comments and help out everybody else. But for me, this bouncer ball turret is the best thing I could come up with, and it's not even that good. That said, we should still get through the entire map without too much difficulty. This is nothing major, but I wanted to just show that we got a supreme item on wave 19, and wow, that is really good. Now, we just finished wave 20, and I want to show you guys some of the loot that we got. These are the mythicals just from this wave, only from wave 20, and you can see they're pretty good. You know, around 250-ish, 200-ish, and a good amount of upgrades on most of them. And here's all the Transcendence that we've gotten that were worth keeping. And as you can see, these are a pretty big step up in quality. And keep in mind, they do get 3% more from their set bonus compared to Mythicals. On top of that, their stat caps are at 420 rather than 360. Also, they tend to have more upgrades, and on top of that, we also got these Supremes, which, we can't use these yet, but if you wanted to, you could level and then use them. That right there, I have no idea why, but every once in a while, a Dark Elf Warrior decides to choose Violence, and it just destroys you. If it's super late, like wave 30, they might one-shot your heroes, maybe. But if it's not that late, then they'll just do a bit of damage, and then they'll die. By the way, when the Jhin Blitz happens, if you do a triple sword, be ready to, like, tank some shots and or try and dodge some shots, because, when you're standing up this high, or even when you're on the ground, honestly, the Jhins have a good amount of aggro on you, and they will deal like 20k damage per shot, so just keep an eye on it. But most of the time they'll die very soon afterwards, so you won't have to worry about it that much. Oh yeah, on wave 25 you get pet. Wow, look at that. Not really useful. Not really worth using, but neat. Legendary mistiming of my wheel. I think I need to move the reflection beam just a little bit farther forward, to be honest. It's doing alright, but could certainly use some help. Okay. No more genie time. I gotta mention, by the way, around wave 27, you're gonna have an increase in your enemies all the way up to 1992. I'm pretty sure this is the max, so as long as you can handle everything here, you should be good for the entire map. The only real difference that you'll notice is that normally the wave structure is a bunch of regular enemies and Jhins, and then eventually the regular enemies die, and you get a Jhin Blitz, and then, you know, wave is over. This time, if you don't have really good DPS, you're just going to get a ton of regular enemies and Jhins at the same time. But honestly, if you have around the stats that I had, you should be fine. Okay, now all the Jhins hate me. I think I'm safe here, though, I think. Or mostly safe. I'm safer than I am on top of the crystal. I know that for a fact. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. You know, I didn't notice this, but we got an ultimate this round. And not just one ultimate. We actually got 2 ultimates. Because we have another one over here. They're only good for DPS, and I'm not really picking those up right now because I'm lazy. But it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. Fun fact, this entire time, because I just never paid any amount of attention, I've only had 2 pieces of gear that were upgraded. You know, that explains a lot. I was really wondering why those Dark Elf warriors were dealing so much damage. Like, I knew they dealt a lot, but I'm like, I have a lot of HP. And same with the Jins. I was like, I have a lot of health. These guys shouldn't be dealing that much damage. And this whole time, I didn't even have, like, half the resistances that I should have. I am El Stupido Maximus. Okay, it turns out I lied, and on the final wave, you get an extra, like, what is that? 700 enemies, give or take. But no big deal. They shouldn't really be any problem. And we are finished. Isn't that neat? Ooh, I forgot. I should have locked some of the items I had and moved them beforehand. Now I have the map completion slop to look through. But either way, some random pets. You also get skeletons / giraffe on a treadmills, which can be pretty good. For example, this one. Pretty nice, right? Even has a speed multiplier. Only downside is that 725, interesting. Only downside is that they have a level requirement of 100, which is a little rough in my opinion, but whatever. I gotta go ahead and look through all the loot on the ground, decide what to keep, and then yet again I have to look through the loot in my stash and decide what's actually a map reward and what I had beforehand. I wonder what Mr. Tavern Keep is going to have for me. Also, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be like roughly 1 billion mana from the last wave. Yeah, not so bad. Alright, that was the entirety of Deeper Well Survival, and we have a lot of armors from there. Granted, I actually got fairly unlucky, maybe, or I just didn't pick up that much stuff. I don't remember. Last time I did this, I got like 10 pages, but I mean, either way, we have enough sets of armor to increase our stats on all of our heroes by a ton. Here's like a rough example of kind of the stats that you would expect on your characters. A little bit low on the sides, to be honest, but it basically, you get 500 from your weapon, 500-ish from your pet, and you should be expecting, what's the number here? 559 from every single piece of armor when you have a matching set. Granted, in this case, I didn't have a chest piece, but whatever, good enough. These stats are, I'm pretty sure, like, more than good enough to do the entirety of Infested Survival. So, like, you could do that, and that is, like, the best armor farm in the game, or, you know, on par with the best armor farms in the game. There's also the fact that I'm also not wearing any accessories whatsoever, which, that's like a, what, plus 600 to your primary stat? By the way, when it comes to accessories, I recommend just doing Arcane Library on, like, Nightmare Hardcore. But that's not to say that's the only option, because you could also do stuff like Lab Assault on Ruthless Hardcore. Also, this is a good armor farm. On top of that, you can do in the challenges section, once you get to the Ramparts, you can do Ruthless Hardcore of the Assault Challenge Pack, which is a really good way to get stat weapons for your EV and also for your Huntress. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on what you can do to get like DPS weapons, yada yada yada. But if you want all that information, just go watch the quest for completion. As for this video, we have like roughly 3.5k in the primary stat. You can get this up to like maybe 4 or 5k if you have full Supremes and all that good business, or full Ultimates, but either way, that's going to be it for my video. Once I'm done uploading this, I'm probably going to go and make another video on the same account showing like Lab Assault and also maybe the campaign challenge thing I was talking about. A whole bunch of stuff like that, because all of that stuff is things you can do before you go into Deeper Well. And Lab Assault specifically, not only does it give you accessories, which is really nice, but the armor you get from here is really good, or can be really good. It's a very mixed bag. But it can be so good that you can actually just get like these stats, roughly these stats, and then just go straight into Infested if you want. So if you don't like the Deeper Well experience, you can just follow that path. But for this video, that is it. It took a bit longer than I expected because I got a bit unlucky, but regardless, I think it was like, what, maybe like 9 hours total, something like that, 10-ish. Either way, I'm done, and I'm bored, and I'm gonna have to edit like 12 hours of video. Oh boy.